Chapter 2339. Gulp. Rong Hao swallowed a mouthful of saliva on the spot. Although he came from the immortal court and was an expert from a certain immortal kingdom, who didn't want the ironwood divine spring? His current cultivation was at the late stage of Heaven Monarch. Once he consumed the ironwood divine spring, he would definitely advance to the peak of Heaven Monarch realm. If he simply cultivated, he would probably need a long time to advance to the peak of Heaven Monarch realm. Now that the opportunity was right in front of him, how could he not be excited? Swish! He looked at Ningyu with a face full of hope. Seeing Rong Hao's reaction, Ningyu rolled his eyes and said, "Give Rong Hao a portion. As for Ming Hao's ironwood divine spring, leave it to me." Ningyu wasn't a fool. Rong Hao could take the ironwood divine spring because Rong Hao came from the immortal court and was on the same side as him. Ming Hao was different. Ming Hao was a heavenly demon and was still under his control. If Ming Hao swallowed the ironwood divine spring, his cultivation would skyrocket to an uncontrollable level. Wouldn't that be the end of him? No problem. Tai Feng didn't want to quarrel with Ningyu. He flicked his wrist and threw a portion of the ironwood divine spring to Ningyu and Rong Hao. "Thank you." Receiving the ironwood divine spring, Rong Hao sat cross-legged and poured it into his mouth. Seeing Rong Hao's action, Ningyu and Tai Feng were a little dumbfounded. Wasn't he too impatient? Although the ironwood divine spring could unconditionally increase a Heaven Monarch realm expert's level, the ironwood divine spring that Tai Feng took out wasn't enough. One portion of the ironwood divine spring was divided into 10 portions by Tai Feng. Rong Hao's portion was only 1/10. Boom! The ironwood divine spring entered his stomach. A terrifying aura was suddenly emitted from Rong Hao's body. At this moment, Rong Hao was ready to break through to the peak of Heaven Monarch realm. Ka. Rong Hao's next action proved that he wasn't impulsive but had long been prepared. He took out elixirs continuously and threw them into his mouth as if they were free. So many elixirs, even Ningyu was a little surprised. "Let's wait and see." Seeing Tai Feng's gaze, Ningyu waved his hand and said, "If Rong Hao can advance to the peak stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, he will be a great help." When Rong Hao was at the late stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, he could use the disc to fight against another skull. Although he was defeated in the end, his strength was acknowledged by Ningyu. All right, Tai Feng took a few steps back, giving Rong Hao some space to move around. Anyway, there was someone watching over the Thunder Elixir King. Once the Thunder Elixir King concocted an Immortal King pill, he would be the first to receive news. Therefore, it was not a waste of his time to see if Rong Hao could advance to the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, an hour passed. Poochie. When the second hour arrived, Rong Hao opened his mouth and suddenly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. The ironwood divine spring is not enough. Tai Feng looked at Ningyu and said, "I only have 3 bottles of ironwood divine spring water on me. Even if I go back now, it will be too late." "I know what you mean." Ningyu rolled his eyes at Tai Feng. He then took out 2 bottles of ironwood divine spring water and threw them to Rong Hao. "Ning, you would not be stingy with just 2 bottles of ironwood divine spring water." After all, Rong Hao had even given him the disc unconditionally. It was not a big deal for him to give up a few bottles of ironwood divine spring water. Crack, crack. As it was a critical moment, Rong Hao did not thank Tai Feng. He immediately swallowed the 2 bottles of ironwood divine spring water. Boom! The ironwood divine spring water entered his stomach. An extremely terrifying aura burst out from Rong Hao's sea of consciousness and soared into the sky. Bang! 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 A series of muffled sounds could be heard. Rong Hao suddenly opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. Boom! Another even more terrifying aura gushed out. Peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. The rise of this aura meant that Rong Hao's cultivation had reached the terrifying peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. Thank you. After advancing to the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm, Rong Hao immediately retracted his aura and thanked Ningyu and Taifeng. If not for Taifeng and Ningyu's Ironwood Divine Spring, it would have been difficult for him to advance to the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm. What are you thanking me for? Ningyu casually waved his hand and said, We're in the same boat. I hope that you can be stronger and protect me when the time comes. Rong Hao nodded his head heavily and did not continue speaking. A great favor could not be thanked with words. As for the disc, it had already recognized its owner and he could not take it back, now that Ningyu had given him 2 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring, which allowed him to advance to the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm successfully. This favor alone was enough for him to repay for a long time. There's still about 2 hours before the Thunder Elixir King can refine the Immortal King Elixir. Why don't I introduce you to the others first? Seeing that Rong Hao had successfully advanced, Taifeng said timely, This time we need to work together to encircle Dushida and the others. If there is a problem, it will be serious. No problem. Ningyu did not reject Taifeng. Actually, Taifeng was right. Since they were going to cooperate, they had to have a clear understanding of each other's strength. Otherwise, if there was a problem in any of the links, the consequences would be very serious. Double-horned demonic beast, Ninglu, go into the Red Devil's sword for now. Before they left, Ningyu said to the double-horned demonic beast and Ninglu, regardless of whether it was the double-horned demonic beast or Ninglu, they were not particularly strong. They might be able to deal with ordinary martial artists at the peak of the Saint Immortal stage. But against a Heaven Monarch realm expert, the 2 of them would be no different from cannon fodder. Be careful. Ninglu knew the severity of the situation. Then, with a flash of his body, he entered the Red Devil's sword. As for the double-horned demonic beast, he looked at Rong Hao and then at Ningyu. In the end, he went into the Red Devil's sword with Ninglu. After all, he was used to staying in the Red Devil's sword, and there was someone talking to him in the Red Devil's sword. He was not used to going back to Rong Hao. Ungrateful wretch. Rong Hao rolled his eyes and joked, Ningyu, I guess it won't be long before the double-horned demonic beast can become one with you and completely betray me. Don't. Ningyu also made a rare joke and said, I don't like demonic beasts and I already have someone I like. You can keep the double-horned demonic beast for yourself. Rong Hao was stunned, as if he thought of the ambiguity in Ningyu's words, and his face turned a little dark. Sha! Ningyu hurriedly left the room as if he was escaping. Taifeng and Rong Hao followed closely. Currently, Ningyu and the others were on the 7th floor of the ULI restaurant, in the number 3 Supreme Room. Soon, they arrived on the 8th floor, in front of the number 2 Supreme Room. Rong Hao looked at the big words on the door of the room and said doubtfully, This is the highest floor called the number 2 Supreme Room. Could there be a number 1 Supreme Room on the higher floor? Country bumpkin. As soon as Rong Hao finished speaking, Chapter 2340. Rong Hao looked back. Not far away, a group of 2 martial artists was walking towards him. Rong Hao's expression changed slightly when he felt the aura from the 2 martial artists. Peak stage Heaven Monarch. Obviously, the 2 martial artists were both at the peak of Heaven Monarch. Rong Hao was very clear. Even if he had reached the peak of Heaven Monarch, it would be hard for him to be a match for these 2 martial artists. A bumpkin will always be a bumpkin. Rong Hao's reaction made the 2 martial artists raise the corner of their mouths. They said in a sinister tone, inexperienced. Then, the 2 martial artists looked at Taifeng and said with dissatisfaction, Our opponents are very strong this time. Aren't you afraid of making mistakes by inviting these Tom, Dick, and Harry? Swish! Rong Hao's expression turned ugly when he heard the 2 martial artists' mockery. Oh, you have a different opinion. One of the martial artists in gray saw the change of Rong Hao's expression. The martial artist in gray raised his eyebrows and said, "How about this? I'll give you a fair chance. Let's give each other a punch. If you can make me take half a step back, I'll take back what I said before. Otherwise—" The martial artist in gray paused for a moment. Then he continued, "Otherwise you have to kneel down and crawl under my crotch." "It's not good to crawl under your crotch. It's a little impolite." The other martial artist in white held his chin with his right hand and said thoughtfully, "How about this? We'll leave a way out for each other in case we meet again in the future. Let him be a dog. Call him a dog." Ha ha ha. The martial artist in white and the martial artist in gray laughed as they talked. They didn't put Ningyu and Tai Feng in their eyes at all. "Your family." Ningyu looked at Tai Feng and asked. Tai Feng knew what Ningyu meant. He shook his head gently and said in a low voice, "This time I invited many martial artists in the peak of Heaven Monarch Realm. I almost invited all the martial artists in the peak of Heaven Monarch Realm outside the Immortal Court and gave them a lot of benefits to confuse them." "That's good." Without waiting for Tai Feng to finish a sentence, Ningyu said indifferently, "Ning, you didn't care about Tai Feng's motives. He only needed to know if the gray-clothed and white-clothed warriors were from the Tai Mu family. If that was the case, there was no need for him to do it himself. He could just leave it to Tai Feng. If not, if that was the case, he could personally teach these arrogant people a lesson and let them know that there were some things that could be said and some things that could not be said. What are you guys whispering about?" The actions of Ningyu and Tai Feng were seen by the white-clothed martial artist. The white-robed cultivator stretched out his right hand and pointed at Ningyu. He said, "Yes, I'm talking about you. Come here and repeat what you just said to me." "Hee hee." Ningyu smiled. The ignorant were truly fearless. "What are you laughing at?" The martial artist in white looked gloomy and scolded. "You are just a piece of trash at the half-step Heaven Monarch Realm. How dare you smile at me? You must be tired of living." "Do you really want to hear it?" Ningyu asked. "Speak." The martial artist in white released his aura and suddenly pressed down on Ningyu. "About barking like a dog, you can consider it," Ningyu said calmly. "At least you know your place." The martial artist in white said coldly. He was prepared. If Ningyu dared to say anything disrespectful, he would kill him immediately. He didn't need to use too much strength against a half-step Heaven Monarch Realm martial artist. However, what Ningyu said next made his face turn completely cold. "Hurry up. You and the gray-clothed elder go and bark like a dog." Ningyu waved his hand and said, "My time is limited. I don't want to waste any more time here." "What?" The martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist were furious. After all this time they were fooled. Ka. Knowing that they were fooled, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist were very angry. They were both peak stage Heaven Monarchs, but they were actually mocked by a half-step Heaven Monarch Realm martial artist. If this matter were to be spread out, how could they survive? Therefore, in their opinion, the young man in front of them must die. Swish, swish. Stepping on the ground, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist rushed out at the same time. They made up their minds. No matter what, they had to teach the young man in front of them a lesson. Otherwise, they would become the target of ridicule. Bang! Bang! However, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist just arrived in front of Ningyu. Before they punched, they felt their bodies become light and flew straight out. Crack! Crack! His body slammed into the stairs, shattering the guardrail. Puff! Ningyu's move was extremely powerful. The martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist spurted a big mouthful of blood at the same time, and their aura dropped sharply. In a short period of time, their aura dropped from peak stage Heaven Monarch Realm to early stage Heaven Monarch Realm. After being defeated by Ningyu in one move, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist burst into hysterical roars. They never expected that this young man who was half-step to the Heaven Monarch realm was the real expert. Even if the two of them attacked at the same time, they were still defeated easily. Bark! Ning Yu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said to the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist, "My patience is limited." Hearing Ning Yu's request, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist clenched their fists in anger. They didn't even care that their nails dug into their palms. They knew very well what Ning Yu meant. He asked them to bark like a dog. "Don't bark." Seeing that the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist were not going to compromise, Ning Yu turned to Rong Hao and said, "Rong, Tianjun, please." Woof, woof. Before Ning Yu finished speaking, the white-robed cultivator and the gray-robed cultivator let out a series of shouts. While barking, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist made up their minds. Today, Ning Yu had humiliated them. In the future, they would pay back double. "Let's go." Tai Feng glanced at the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist and finally chose to give up. Compared to Ning Yu, the martial artist in white and the gray-clothed martial artist could be abandoned. Creak! The door of the number 2 Supreme Room was pushed open. Ning Yu and Tai Feng walked in together. As for Rong Hao and Ming Hao, they followed closely and didn't dare to be careless. Bang! After Ning Yu, Tai Feng, and the others entered the number 2 Supreme Room. The martial artist in white and the gray-clothed old man pounded the ground with their right hands. Shameful! So shameful! They thought that they could defeat Ning Yu easily. Never did they expect that they would be defeated so easily. The current situation was very unfavorable for them. It was a big problem whether they could enter the number 2 Supreme Room or not. If they didn't go in, they couldn't get the Ironwood Divine Spring. If they went in, they would have to face Ning Yu one more time. At this moment, they were in a dilemma. "Jia Bin, Zhou Hang, what are you doing?" Right at this moment. Chapter 2341. Swish! The white-clothed martial artist and the gray-clothed martial artist, Jia Bin and Zhou Hang, hurriedly looked to the other side. Rustle! Not far away, a young martial artist dressed in red was slowly walking towards them. Not long after, the martial artist in red stopped in front of them and asked doubtfully, "In 10 minutes, Tai Feng will distribute the Ironwood Divine Spring. Why don't you go in?" Jia Bin and Zhou Hang exchanged glances when they saw the cultivator in red. They could see a trace of excitement in each other's eyes. They couldn't pose a threat to Ning Yu even if they joined forces. However, the martial artist in red was different. Although the martial artist in red was also at the peak of the Lord of Heaven, his strength was much stronger than theirs. Most importantly, they knew each other before and had a good relationship with the martial artist in red. It couldn't be better to drag the martial artist in red down and let him fight against Ning Yu. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang were not indecisive people. They quickly said, "Lin Lang, we met a martial artist at the half-step Lord of Heaven realm. He is stronger than you." Oh, Lin Lang raised his eyebrows. Stronger than him? To be honest, he didn't really believe it. After all, he was at the peak of the Lord of Heaven realm and was known as the strongest under the Immortal King realm. Although he hadn't reached the half-step Immortal King realm, with his current combat strength, he might be able to fight against a half-step Immortal King expert. Even if he couldn't defeat a half-step Immortal King, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape from one. Now that Jia Bin said that a half-step Lord of Heaven realm martial artist was comparable to him or even stronger than him, how could he believe it? With a faint smile, Lin Lang began moving toward the Sovereign Room too. Wait, seeing that Lin Lang was about to leave, Jia Bin hurriedly said, "That martial artist is really strong. Not only is he much younger than you, but he is also much stronger than you." Russell. Lin Lang stopped and turned around to look at Jia Bin. "So what? Air." Jia Bin was slightly taken aback by Lin Lang's question. Yes, so what? Everything was between them and the young man. It really had nothing to do with Lin Lang. No matter how strong that youth was, Lin Lang didn't need to care. After all, there was no necessary connection between them. We want you to help us deal with him. Jia Bin gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, as long as you can teach him a lesson, we're willing to give you a share of our ironwood divine spring. Give me a share? Lin Lang looked at Jia Bin with interest and said, I have received accurate news that Tai Feng has changed the distribution of the ironwood divine spring. Let's talk about it when you get it. As he spoke, Lin Lang walked toward Supreme Room 2 without looking back, leaving behind a dumbfounded Jia Bin and Zhou Hang. Changed the distribution method? They were the experts invited by Tai Feng this time. Even if there was a change in the distribution method, Tai Feng should have told them about it. Something's wrong. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang quickly reacted, judging from Tai Feng's reaction when they were defeated. It seemed that Tai Feng had the intention to change the distribution method. Furthermore, the new distribution method would most likely result in them being kicked out. Perhaps they despised them for being too weak, or perhaps they were easily defeated by that youth. Either way, Tai Feng must have changed the distribution method of the ironwood divine spring. Let's go. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang angrily walked toward Supreme Room 2 with a cold expression. When Jia Bin and Zhou Hang dared to enter the Supreme Room 2, they heard a crisp sound. Following the sound, inside the room, a one-eyed old man slapped the seat under him and said coldly, Tai Feng, how dare you go back on your words? Do you think we're easy to bully? Don't be angry. Tai Feng's expression was indifferent, without joy or sorrow. Since we have many people, we must change the distribution method of the ironwood divine spring. Humph. The one-eyed old man snorted and said, I don't care about other things, but if anyone wants to compete with me for my share of the ironwood divine spring, feel free to come and try. Thump. Hearing the one-eyed old man's voice, Jia Bin and Zhou Hang's faces turned ugly. What they feared had come true. They came to Violet Orchid City with the purpose of obtaining the ironwood divine spring. Now, Tai Feng had changed the distribution method, which made them extremely angry. It was not just stupid, but something else. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang said coldly, We object to changing the distribution method. You said before that anyone who has reached the peak of the Lord of Heaven can get a bottle of the ironwood divine spring unconditionally. Swish. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang's words attracted the attention of more than a dozen peak Heavenly Monarch Realm experts in Room 2, including Ning Yu and Rong Hao. A little interesting, Ning Yu sat on the chair and said indifferently, Do you think Tai Feng will push us out? Rong Hao sat beside Ning Yu and said in a low voice. In fact, Rong Hao's worry was not unreasonable. Tai Feng gave him a bottle of ironwood divine spring, and Ning Yu got 2 bottles. Now that the distribution method was changed, anyone would think in this direction. He doesn't have the guts. Ning Yu waved his hand, telling Rong Hao not to worry. As long as Tai Feng was not a fool, he should know that they were the strongest among the dozens of experts at the peak of the Lord of Heaven present. Rong Hao was at the peak of the Lord of Heaven, so was Ming Hao, and he could even fight experts who were half a step to the immortal king realm. In this case, unless there was something wrong with Tai Feng's head, he would never do something stupid. The facts prove that. Tai Feng's head was not wrong. He casually glanced at Jia Bin and Zhou Hang and said indifferently, The redistribution method is very simple. I will take out a dozen or so crystal balls. Later, you will drop your blood essence on them, and then use your soul force to attack the crystal balls. Whoever can break the formation, I will give you a complete ironwood divine spring unconditionally. Clatter! Tai Feng's words caused a huge uproar in Supreme Room 2. A complete ironwood divine spring? Compared to before, it was 10 bottles. Wasn't the purpose of their coming here for the ironwood divine spring? According to the previous distribution method, a bottle of ironwood divine spring would not be of much use to them. Now that Tai Fong took out 10 bottles at once, although the conditions were extremely harsh, it was not impossible. I will go first. Jiabin took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Take out the crystal ball. I want to see what tricks you are playing." Swish! Tai Fong did not talk nonsense. With a flick of his wrist, a crystal ball flew out in an instant. Pa! Jiabin caught the crystal ball steadily and directly forced a drop of essence blood on it. Moreover, Chapter 2342. Ningyu, do you think he can break through the array in the crystal ball? Rong Hao asked in a low voice when he saw Jiabin attacking the crystal ball with all his might. Break through the array? Ningyu raised the corner of his mouth and said with a faint smile, "Do you really think Tai Fong is so kind as to give 10 bottles of ironwood divine spring to anyone who can break through the array? Isn't that so?" Rong Hao was slightly startled and asked doubtfully. In Rong Hao's opinion, in order to defeat the state preceptor of the soaring sky immortal kingdom, Tai Fong would unconditionally take out 100 bottles of ironwood divine spring, let alone 10. Why did it sound like things weren't that simple from Ning Yu's point of view? Ningyu smiled and didn't answer. Ningyu was very clear about the fact that there were too many people around. As long as Tai Fong didn't target him, there was no need for him to leak the news. After all, Tai Fong gave him 2 bottles of ironwood divine spring. Although he gave them to Rong Hao, Tai Fong still treated him well. Since Ningyu didn't say anything, Rong Hao didn't ask too much. He could only turn around and look at Jiabin, hoping to find some clues. Swish! When Rong Hao looked at Jiabin, everyone in the number 2 Supreme cabin looked at Jiabin. They all wanted to see if Jiabin could break through the array and get 10 bottles of ironwood divine spring. However, nothing was absolute. In the cabin, there were 2 people who didn't look at Jiabin. One was Ningyu, the other was Lin Lang. Interesting. Lin Lang's lips curled up slightly and revealed a playful look. When Jiabin and Zhou Hang said that he was defeated by a half-step heaven monarch, he didn't take it seriously and thought that Jiabin and Zhou Hang were exaggerating. However, when he saw Ningyu, he finally understood. Jiabin and Zhou Hang didn't exaggerate. The strength of this half-step heaven monarch young man in front of him was indeed terrifying. Even he didn't have the absolute confidence to win. Sha sha! After thinking about it, Lin Lang walked straight towards Ningyu. Everyone in the number 2 Supreme Room had their eyes on Jiabin. Only Tai Fong noticed Lin Lang's actions. This time he invited over a dozen peak stage heaven monarch martial artists. But only Lin Lang and the martial artists in the Supreme number 1 private room caught his attention. To be honest, he did not wish to see Lin Lang and Ningyu being too close. But right now, his main focus was still on checking the crystal ball. He had no time to care about Lin Lang and Ningyu, so he could only let them communicate. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Lin Lang." Before long, Lin Lang stood in front of Ningyu and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you." Ningyu also extended his hand. Whoosh! Just as he held Lin Lang's hand, Ningyu felt a force attacking his palm. There was no need to think about it. It must be Lin Lang testing him. Ningyu did not want to have a conflict with Lin Lang, but since Lin Lang took the initiative to provoke him, he had to respond. The immortal qi in his body surged and attacked Lin Lang's palm along his palm. Whoosh! Ningyu's counterattack made Lin Lang's heart tremble. He knew that Ningyu would counterattack, but he did not expect it to be so terrifying. In order not to be at a disadvantage, he had to increase his strength. However, when he increased his strength, Ningyu would also increase his strength. Damn it! Lin Lang cursed in his heart. A terrifying aura surged out from his body. He wanted to face Ningyu head-on and see who was the real expert. Crack! At this moment, the crystal ball on Jia Bin's side suddenly cracked. The cracking of the crystal ball meant that Jia Bin had cracked the formation inside. Clap, clap, clap. For a moment, the martial artists in the private room all stood up and applauded. Jia Bin has cracked the formation and is rewarded with 10 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. Tai Feng quietly put away the crystal ball fragments, then took out 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring and said, "I'll give you 5 bottles first, and the other 5 will be given after the plan is completed." "Thank you." Jia Bin took the 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring and thanked Tai Feng. He then looked at Ningyu with a provocative gaze. "Idiot," Ningyu said indifferently. So silly and cute. He had been sold, but he was still happily counting money for others. You can see it too? Due to Jia Bin breaking the array formation in the crystal ball, Ningyu and Lin Lang's first confrontation was announced to be evenly matched. At this moment, seeing the change in Ningyu's expression, Lin Lang said, "Are you interested in fighting for the Ironwood Divine Spring? If you dare to cause trouble, I can guarantee that you will be eliminated before you reach the number 1 private room." Ningyu said calmly. "Boring." Lin Lang curled his lips and said, "I'm not going to cause trouble. I'm going to obtain the Ironwood Divine Spring legally." Russell. Lin Lang was a man of action. He pushed away Zhou Hang, who was preparing, and said to Tai Feng, "I want to try." Swoosh! The corner of Tai Feng's eyes revealed a cold expression. However, this cold expression was well concealed by him. Sure. With a flick of his wrist, Tai Feng threw an ordinary crystal ball to Lin Lang. Obviously, Tai Feng had done something to the others, but he did not do anything to Lin Lang. Even the crystal ball was extremely fragile and would shatter with a slight touch. Crack! Lin Lang only touched the crystal ball with his hand, and the crystal ball completely shattered. Swoosh! Swoosh! Tai Feng chose to treat everyone equally. He threw 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring to Lin Lang. "Thank you." Lin Lang waved the Ironwood Divine Spring in his hand and then returned to Ningyu's side. Chapter 2343. Swish! Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. The martial artist who spoke was Jia Bin. At this moment, Jia Bin stared at Ningyu valiantly like a cheapskate who had just won, and said gloomily, "Ningyu, we have all broken the formation in the crystal ball and obtained 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. You and the old man next to you have all broken the formation. Why didn't you and the old man next to you give it a try? Logically speaking, it has nothing to do with me whether you try or not. But we're going to Supreme Box 1 next. You didn't even pass the assessment. How dare you go to Supreme Box 1 with us?" Jia Bin's words were reasonable. For a moment, all the martial artists in the box turned their eyes to Ningyu and Rong Hao. Since entering Supreme Box 2, except for Ningyu and Rong Hao, basically everyone had obtained Ironwood Divine Spring. They were qualified to enter Supreme Box 1. But how could Ningyu and Rong Hao be qualified? I thought someone was powerful. It turns out that he's just a wax statue. Nice to look at, but useless. Zhou Hang curled his lips and said, "Jia Bin, don't force them. With their strength, how can they break the formation in the crystal ball? Aren't you trying to kill them?" Tai Feng did not intervene in Jia Bin and Zhou Hang's provocation. He even slowly retracted his right hand, which he had used to open the door to the number 1 room. Seeing this, everyone could see that Tai Feng also intended to let Ningyu break the formation in the crystal ball. "Rong Tianjun, you go and try first." Ningyu did not make an exception. He said to Rong Hao, "Don't force yourself if you can't." Understood. Rong Hao seemed to have guessed Ningyu's intention. He took a step forward and said in a deep voice, If you can break the formation, I can do the same. Do the same? What a joke! Jia-bin sneered and said, If I'm not wrong, you have just advanced to the peak of Lord of Heaven. Your overall strength should be similar to the two people who were just invited out. If you know what's good for you, get out of here. Otherwise, it will be revealed and make everyone look bad. Rong Hao smiled and did not continue to tangle with Jia-bin. He came out to break the array formation, not to bicker with Jia-bin. If they really wanted to bicker, Ning Yu would probably take action himself. Moreover, after observing for so long, Rong Hao could see some clues. Everyone dripped their blood onto the crystal ball. In the end, the blood was collected by Tai Feng. In this situation, there was only one possibility. Tai Feng's collection of their blood essence was of great use. Although he did not know what it was used for, Rong Hao was not a fool. He would not hand over the blood essence. Here, Tai Feng thought for a while before throwing out a black crystal ball. Pa! Rong Hao caught the crystal ball and his face darkened. Other people's crystal balls were basically transparent, but his crystal ball was not only opaque, but also black. Rong Hao did not immediately try to break the array formation within the water crystal ball. Instead, he shifted his gaze towards Ningyu, wanting to see what advice Ningyu could give him. Do your best and leave the rest to fate. Ningyu's expression was indifferent. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. Hearing Ningyu's words, Rong Hao was stunned for a moment before slapping the crystal ball with his right hand. Ningyu's meaning was very clear. As long as he did not drip his blood onto the crystal ball, he could try his best to break the array formation within the crystal ball. Humph! I would like to see if you can break the array formation. Jia-bin snorted coldly and said, Trash will always be trash. I don't believe you can succeed. If he succeeds, I will twist my head off and let him use it as a chamber pot. Zhou Heng echoed. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Things seemed to be developing in the direction that Jia-bin and Zhou Heng had expected. 5 minutes passed. The black crystal ball did not respond. 10 minutes passed. The black crystal ball did not respond either. Swoosh! In the end, the black crystal ball even broke free from Rong Hao's palm and returned to Tai Feng's hand. Ha ha ha! Jia-bin and Zhou Heng were stunned for a moment before they could not help but laugh wildly. I'm dying of laughter. I have already said that trash like you can't break the array formation. Looks like it's true. Did you offend Tai Feng somehow? Even Lin Lang felt that this change was a little unbelievable. After all, Ningyu's strength was comparable to his. At this time, unless Tai Feng's head was rusty, he would not go against Rong Hao. But it had already happened. Rong Hao really did not break the crystal ball. And Jia-bin and Zhou Heng felt that they should follow up with another attack. They then pointed the spearhead at Ningyu and said coldly, in the entire number 2 Supreme Room, you're the only one who hasn't tried to break the array formation. I'd like to see if you really have the ability to break the array formation. Tai Feng. Ningyu ignored Jia-bin and Zhou Heng's mockery. He stood up and looked at Tai Feng. Give me the black crystal ball. This, hearing Ningyu's words, a cold glint flashed across Tai Feng's eyes. But in the end, he still threw the black crystal ball to Ningyu. Crack! Ningyu did not use his hand to catch the crystal ball. Instead, he casually threw a punch at it. Wherever the fist aura passed, the crystal ball shattered on the spot. Swoosh! The moment the crystal ball shattered, a faint cold light suddenly swept out. Where are you going? Ningyu was quick to react. He stomped on the ground and grabbed the ball. Rong Tianjun, here you go. With a flick of his wrist, Ningyu threw the cold glow in his palm to Rong Tianjun. Whoosh! Looking at the cold glow flying toward him, Rong Tianjun's expression changed slightly. He did not have time to think. He immediately opened up his mind and allowed the cold glow to enter his body. Boom! As soon as the black crystal ball entered his body, Rong Hao felt as if something that was missing in his body had been replenished. You. In an instant, Rong Hao's expression turned cold. He turned around and stared at Tai Feng, saying in a deep voice, "Why, Pa!" Before Rong Hao could finish his words, Ningyu patted his shoulder and said indifferently, "Leave this matter to me." While they were talking, Ningyu moved his feet and slowly came in front of Tai Feng. 10 portions. Stretching out his right hand, Ningyu did not beat around the bush and said directly, 10 portions of ironwood divine spring. Uft. As soon as Ningyu said that, Jia Bin and Zhou Hang could not help but burst into laughter. 10 portions? What kind of person was he? He asked for 10 portions of ironwood divine spring the moment he opened his mouth. Noisy! Facing Jia Bin and Zhou Hang's mockery, Ningyu's expression turned cold and he casually waved 2 cold glows. Bang! Bang! The cold glows were so fast that they almost reached Jia Bin and Zhou Hang in the blink of an eye. 2 crisp sounds could be heard, indicating that Jia Bin and Zhou Hang were hit by the cold glows and fell to the ground. Uft! Blood spurted out of their mouths. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang's aura instantly dropped from the peak of the Heaven Lord realm to the early stage. Chapter 2344. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang had provoked Ningyu again and again. How could Ningyu let them go? He succeeded in one move. Ningyu chased after them. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive punches landed on Jia Bin's and Zhou Hang's heads. In an instant, Jia Bin's and Zhou Hang's heads exploded. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Hiss! Seeing Jia Bin's and Zhou Hang's tragic deaths, everyone in Supreme Room 2 gasped. Jia Bin and Zhou Hang's strength might not be among the top few in the room, but it was enough for them to be in the middle. With such strength, they were easily killed by Ningyu. One could imagine, if it were them, their ending would not be much different. Russell. After killing Jia Bin and Zhou Hang, Ningyu squatted beside them and took the ironwood divine spring. Both of them had passed Tai Feng's test, and each of them had 5 bottles of ironwood divine spring. Now that they were killed, the ironwood divine spring naturally belonged to Ningyu. After taking the ironwood divine spring, Ningyu turned to look at Tai Feng and said, 10. Tai Feng's face turned ugly. He had thought that his scheme against Rong Hao would not be discovered. Who would have thought? Ningyu was so smart that he could see the abnormality of the black crystal ball. Now that Ningyu wanted 10 bottles of ironwood divine spring, it put him in a difficult position. In fact, he could take out 10 complete bottles of ironwood divine spring. But if he did that, he would not be able to explain to Tai Muyu when he entered Supreme Room 1. After all, these ironwood divine spring were only with him, for safekeeping. He was only able to distribute a small portion of it. The rest of the distribution was in the hands of the ironwood fish. How about 1? After thinking about it, Tai Feng took out a complete bottle of ironwood divine spring and said to Ningyu, I can give you 1 bottle of ironwood divine spring and pretend that nothing happened. 10. Ningyu said firmly, 3 portions at most. Tai Feng gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, I only have 3 portions of ironwood divine spring left. I don't have any more. Let's go. Ning, you did not want to talk nonsense with Tai Feng. He glanced at Rong Hao and walked out of the box. All right, 10 servings it is. Seeing that Ningyu wanted to leave, Tai Feng couldn't care less. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed a space ring to Ningyu. Obviously, the ring contained 10 complete portions of ironwood divine spring. Pa! Catching the ring, Ningyu used his perception to look at it and then put it into his bosom. With 10 complete sets of ironwood divine spring, Ningyu was confident that he could break through to the Heaven Monarch realm. For an ordinary martial artist, perhaps 1 portion or even half a portion could raise one's cultivation by a level. For example, Rong Hao had only used 3 bottles, which was 3/10 of the Ironwood Divine Spring, to advance from the late-stage Heaven Monarch realm to the peak stage of Heaven Monarch realm. Although Rong Hao was not far from the peak stage of the Heaven Monarch realm, it was enough to show how terrifying the Ironwood Divine Spring was. "Can we go now?" Tai Feng gritted his teeth and said, "No problem." Ning Yu shrugged his shoulders. At first, Ning Yu did not feel that there was anything special about Tai Feng, but now Ning Yu finally understood. Tai Feng must be plotting something against him. Otherwise, it was impossible to give him 10 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. What was the concept of 10 portions? It was a known fact that everyone else in the box only took half of the Ironwood Divine Spring. He asked for 10 portions, and Tai Feng did not refuse. From this point, Jiang Yi could see that Tai Feng must be plotting something against him. Even if he knew, Ning Yu did not choose to make it public. This was the Pleasant Arrival Restaurant, Tai Feng's main battlefield. If he left without a clear understanding of the situation, he might become the target of everyone. After all, there would always be brave men with great rewards. If Tai Feng used the Ironwood Divine Spring to tempt others, it would be hard for him to leave. Creak! While Ning Yu was thinking, Tai Feng had already opened the passage to Supreme Number 1 box. Swoosh! Then everyone entered in a line. "Let's go!" Ning Yu did not hesitate and entered Supreme Number 1 box with Rong Hao. Swoosh! As soon as they entered Supreme Number 1 box, they were stared at. After adapting to the environment, Ning Yu looked around. At this time he was in a closed room. Although it was said to be closed, it was actually very spacious. It was the size of dozens of Supreme Number 2 boxes. Although the room was spacious, there were more than a dozen martial artists gathered around an altar. Half-step Immortal King. Ning Yu's eyes fell on the old man above the altar. The old man's cultivation had reached the horrifying half-step Immortal King realm. Apart from the old man, the rest of the martial artists were all at the peak Heavenly Lord realm. Swoosh! Seeing Ning Yu and the others coming in, the old man jumped down from the altar. "Wait a moment." The old man gave a few instructions and then walked straight to Tai Feng. Seeing the old man walking towards him, Tai Feng quickly took out a space ring and handed it to the old man. Then he said, "Father, the Ironwood Divine Spring is all here." "Well done." The old man was Tai Muyu. After glancing at Ning Yu and Lin Lang, Tai Muyu began to check the space ring. Halfway through the check, Tai Muyu frowned slightly. "What's going on?" Tai Muyu's face was extremely cold. At this time, no matter how stupid he was, he knew that the space ring was missing 10 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. Tai Feng did not say anything, but looked at Ning Yu involuntarily. "Got it. Let them drink the Ironwood Divine Spring now." Tai Muyu did not care anymore and returned to the altar. Cough, cough. Tai Feng coughed twice and then said to Ning Yu and Lin Lang, "With my father here, you can drink the Ironwood Divine Spring to cultivate." The martial artists chosen by Tai Feng were all at the peak of the Lord of Heaven. They were not fools. Their original intention was to use the Ironwood Divine Spring to break through to the half-step Immortal King realm. Even if they could not break through to the half-step Immortal King realm, they wanted to double their strength. Now that Tai Feng asked them to drink the Ironwood Divine Spring, how could they be willing? "Tai Feng, I need an explanation." A martial artist at the peak of the Lord of Heaven in blue took a step forward and said coldly, "You said before that we can handle the Ironwood Divine Spring by ourselves. Why are you forcing us to swallow it now? Why do you care so much?" Tai Feng waved his hand impatiently and said, "You have 2 choices now. First, swallow the Ironwood Divine Spring to cultivate. Second, get lost." "Humph, just get lost. What's the big deal?" The blue-clothed Lord of Heaven snorted and then turned to leave without hesitation. Swish! As soon as the blue-clothed Lord of Heaven turned around, Tai Feng immediately dashed out and appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. He clenched his right fist and suddenly punched out. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The blue-clothed Lord of Heaven flew straight toward the altar like a kite with a broken string. Plop! Chapter 2345. Hiss! All of a sudden, aside from Tai Fong and the martial artists who were already present, even Ningyu and Lin Lang could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. At this point, they finally figured out the situation. It was not so easy to get the Ironwood Divine Spring. Gulp! Under such a strong deterrent, the rest of the martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven threw the Ironwood Divine Spring into their mouths. What should we do? Seeing that everyone began to swallow the Ironwood Divine Spring, Ronghao looked at Ningyu and said in a low voice, "How about swallow?" Ningyu interrupted Ronghao and handed him a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring, saying, "Don't worry about other things. Anyway, your task is to improve your strength." Understood. Ronghao was stunned at first. Then he took the Ironwood Divine Spring and poured it into his mouth. As for Ningyu, he found an empty space and sat down cross-legged. He took out a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring and began to swallow it for cultivation. Finally, the fox's tail is revealed. Lin Lang looked extremely serious. In fact, he had guessed a certain possibility at the beginning. After all, Tai Fong took out so much Ironwood Divine Spring at once. It was certainly not without purpose. But he didn't expect that the final result would be like this. Tai Muyu, who was at the half-step Lord of Heaven realm, was afraid that all the martial artists present would become his foil. Because Tai Muyu's purpose was to heal his internal injuries and improve his strength to the peak of the half-step Immortal King, Tai Muyu's body was no longer at its peak due to years of fighting. His body was severely injured. Moreover, in addition to his body, his soul power was also devastated. This time, he spent a lot of money to invite so many martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven realm. On the one hand, it was indeed to fight against the marvelous mathematician and the others. On the other hand, it was to find the right person for him to possess. Humph! If I want to succeed, I have to see if someone agrees or not. Lin Lang snorted. Then, like Ningyu, he sat down cross-legged and began to swallow the Ironwood Divine Spring to cultivate. Tick, tick. As time went on, all kinds of cultivation methods were displayed in the huge box of the Supreme Number One. Muffled bangs rang out incessantly. Every time there was a muffled sound, it meant that a cultivator had completely absorbed the Ironwood Divine Spring, and their strength had increased. In the entire private room, apart from Ningyu, Ronghao, and Lin Lang, the rest of the martial artists at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm only had 5 bottles of Ironwood Divine Spring. 5 bottles were equivalent to half a portion. For an ordinary martial artist, this much Ironwood Divine Spring might be able to raise their cultivation by 1 level. However, for these geniuses who were already at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm, it was basically impossible for them to improve their cultivation. When they swallowed the Ironwood Divine Spring, it was more of an improvement in their strength. Bang! About half an hour later, a muffled sound rang out from Ronghao's sea of consciousness. It meant that Ronghao had completely devoured the Ironwood Divine Fountain. Damn it! Although Tai Fong was on the other side, his attention was always on Ronghao, Ningyu, and Lin Lang. Tai Fong did not pay much attention to the others. After all, he had already tampered with the Ironwood Divine Spring that he had given to those people. As for the Ironwood Divine Spring that he had given to Ningyu and Lin Lang, even if he had tampered with it, it was very likely that he would be discovered. His current idea was very simple. That was, Ningyu and Lin Lang would not discover the problem with the Ironwood Divine Spring, so that they could swallow it completely. However, although the ideal was very rich, the reality was very harsh. With the strength of Ningyu and Lin Lang alone, they might be able to escape from the hands of a half-step to Immortal King. Among them, Ningyu might even be able to fight against a half-step to Immortal King with the help of the round plate, the white bead, and the energy in his sea of consciousness. Boom! Another half an hour later, Ning Yu suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a burst of light in his eyes. With a total of 9 portions of ironwood divine spring, plus the energy in his sea of consciousness and the energy in the white bead, Ning Yu's cultivation had reached the peak of a half step to Heavenly Lord. Even a little bit of energy could trigger the tribulation of Heavenly Lord. Compression. This situation was extremely dangerous. Therefore, Ning Yu decided to take the risk and transfer the energy in the white bead and the ironwood divine spring into his sea of consciousness. Then, he used Ning Lu's blood essence to completely seal it. Swish! Ning Yu was not an indecisive person. He hurriedly contacted Ning Lu and obtained a lot of blood essence from him. The blood essence entered his sea of consciousness and, together with the round plate, forcibly sealed the excess energy. Boom! As soon as Ning Yu sealed the energy, Lin Lang, who was on the other side, suddenly opened his eyes, and a gust of aura rushed into the sky. Not simple. Feeling the aura emanating from Lin Lang, Ning Yu's face became extremely serious. He was not a half step to Immortal King, but stronger than one. The meaning was very simple. Although Lin Lang's cultivation had not reached the half step to Immortal King, the energy in his body had broken through the limit and reached the level of an ordinary half step to Immortal King. Very good. No one knew if he had been paying attention to the situation here. But when Ning Yu and Lin Lang finished cultivating, Taimu nodded slightly and said, "All of you come here. Inject the energy in your bodies into the altar." This, many martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven hesitated. They had come here to fight against the marvelous mathematician and the others, not to listen to Taimuyu's orders. Don't worry, this is part of the fight against the marvelous mathematician and the others. Tai Feng smiled and said, "Inject your energy into the altar first, and then I will give you a portion of the ironwood divine spring. Remember, a complete portion of the ironwood divine spring." Okay, Tai Feng's temptation played a big role. The martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven moved to the side of the altar and injected all their energy into it. "The 3 of you don't just stand there. Hurry up and come over." Tai Feng looked at Ning Yu and Lin Lang and said, "As long as you inject your energy into the altar, I will compensate you with double the amount of the ironwood divine spring." "There is no need for that." Ning Yu got up and tidied up his clothes. He said lightly, "We will not get involved in your business for the time being." "That's right, we will not get involved." Lin Lang knew what Ning Yu meant, so he agreed. At this time, Ning Yu needed to find allies, and so did Lin Lang. Therefore, the 2 sides hit it off and formed a temporary alliance. "I am afraid it is not up to you." Tai Feng's face became extremely cold, and he said in a deep voice, "According to our agreement, you must obey unconditionally and inject your energy into the altar. Otherwise, what awaits you is death." Boom! As soon as the word death fell, a terrifying aura suddenly emitted from Tai Feng's body and pressed down on Ning Yu and Lin Lang. Pseudo half-step to Immortal King. Chapter 2346. Although Tai Muyu was a half-step Immortal King, his body was unwell and he was being held up by the altar. Tai Feng was different. He could attack without any worries. Originally, Ning Yu and Lin Lang thought that Tai Feng was only at the peak of the Lord of Heaven, and his strength would not be that strong. However, the current situation was far beyond their expectations. Tai Feng, who was a half-step Immortal King, was enough to attract their attention. However, that was all. Even if Tai Muyu was not injured, Ning Yu would not be afraid, because his overall strength was entirely capable of going against a half-step Immortal King realm expert. "I will give you one last chance." Tai Feng stared coldly at Ning Yu and Lin Lang and shouted, "Surrender or die!" Boom! While speaking, Tai Feng exerted all the aura in his body and crazily pressed down on Ning Yu and Lin Lang. Tai Feng did not want to fall out with Ning Yu and Lin Lang. Whether it was Ningyu or Lin Lang, they were extremely strong. Tai Feng's original intention was to control Lin Lang and Ningyu, making them the vanguard to charge and break through enemy lines. Don't waste your energy. Lin Lang shrugged and said indifferently, "We all understand the principle of taking someone's money to eliminate disaster. But our task is to deal with Marvelous Mathematician and the others, not to stay here and help your father recover." As his voice fell, Lin Lang glanced at the Tai Muyu on the altar. Swish! Lin Lang's action made Tai Feng's face extremely cold. He did not expect that Lin Lang could see some clues. Indeed, he spent the Ironwood Divine Spring to invite these people here for two main tasks. One was to fight against Marvelous Mathematician and the others, and the other was to help Tai Muyu recover. "A few of you come here." Tai Feng took a deep breath and said to the altar, "Whoever can take down one of them, I will reward him with a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring." Whoosh! Brave men are bound to be inspired by generous rewards. Hearing that Tai Feng was willing to take out an entire portion of the Ironwood Divine Spring, several peak stage Heaven Monarch realm martial artists at the edge of the altar instantly left the altar and rushed towards Ningyu. These martial artists at the peak of the Heaven Monarch realm were not fools. In their opinion, both Rong Hao and Lin Lang were peak stage Heaven Monarchs. Ningyu was the only one who was only a half-step Lord of Heaven. When picking a persimmon, one had to pick the soft one. Therefore, they all rushed forward, and their target was Ningyu. Humph! A sin committed by heaven can be forgiven, but a sin committed by oneself cannot be forgiven. Seeing so many heavenly lords rushing towards him, Ningyu snorted coldly. He injected the immortal qi in his body into his fist and punched out. Bang, bang, bang. Ningyu's attack speed was very fast, and he did not hold back at all. Every time he attacked, a Heaven Monarch would be killed. In just a few seconds, 4 or 5 peak stage Heaven Monarch realm experts who rushed at him had all died, tragically. Hiss! Ningyu's domineering performance caused the other cultivators who wanted to make a move to suck in a breath of cold air. They wanted to choose Ningyu, but now they all changed their target to Lin Lang. Puff, puff, puff. But this time they were disappointed again. Lin Lang took out a silver-white flying sword and waved it repeatedly. Every time the flying sword waved, a Heaven Monarch would be killed. For a moment, the Heaven Monarchs at the altar were completely dumbfounded. They wanted to attack Ningyu, but they found that Ningyu was very strong. When they set their target on Lin Lang, they found that Lin Lang was even more terrifying than Ningyu. Were they going to target Rong Hao? If Rong Hao was also strong, wouldn't they be in trouble? As the saying went, there must be a brave man under a high reward. However, the whole Ironwood Divine Spring that Tai Feng took out was not a high reward. If Tai Feng was willing to take out 10 Ironwood Divine Springs, they might continue to attack. But 1 Ironwood Divine Spring, they had to consider it. Damn it! 8 peak stage Heaven Monarchs died one after another, and Tai Feng couldn't help but curse. But the tragic deaths of these martial artists were not completely useless. At least, it gave Tai Feng a reference and allowed him to roughly guess the strength of Ningyu and Lin Lang. At the same time, he felt very lucky that he didn't go out to fight against 2 people. It should be known, with the strength of Lin Lang and Ningyu, he didn't have the confidence to win even if it was a one-on-one fight, let alone against 2 people. If I knew this, I wouldn't have given them so much Ironwood Divine Spring. Tai Feng looked gloomy and couldn't help but feel a little regretful. When he met Ningyu and Lin Lang for the first time, they weren't as strong as they were now. The improvement of Ningyu and Lin Lang's strength completely depended on the Ironwood Divine Spring that he took out. Nurturing a tiger will bring disaster. At this moment, Tai Feng had such a thought. Since coercion didn't work, Tai Feng decided to lure them with benefits. Swish! With a shake of his wrist, he took out 2 interspatial rings from his bosom. Shaking them, he said to Ningyu and Lin Lang, "There are 100 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring in here. As long as you inject your energy into the altar, I will give it to you unconditionally. I know you won't believe me. Tai Feng seemed to have guessed what Ningyu and Lin Lang were thinking. He continued, I can make a heavenly oath and even sign a life and death contract. Hearing the life and death contract, Ningyu and Lin Lang were moved. A life and death contract could not be signed carelessly. Previously in Kuan Su City, the Su family's ancestor was easily killed by Ningyu because he had signed a life and death contract. Now that Tai Feng wanted to sign a life and death contract. How could Ningyu not be surprised? Because once Tai Feng signed the life and death contract, he would have to give them 100 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring. What are you still thinking about? Tai Feng said, I can put the Ironwood Divine Spring here first. After you inject your energy into the altar, you can come and get it yourself. That's a good choice. Ningyu looked at Lin Lang and said, Why don't we think about it? Yes, we should think about it. Lin Lang nodded. Then Lin Lang and Ningyu huddled together and whispered to each other. What the hell? Since Lin Lang and Ningyu had set up a soundproof formation, Tai Feng could not hear what they were talking about. After a while, Ningyu seemed to have come to an agreement with Lin Lang, and he said in a clear voice, Bring 50 portions of Ironwood Divine Spring over first, and only then will we pour the energy within our bodies into the sacrificial altar. Otherwise, once the energy within our bodies is exhausted, wouldn't we be waiting to be slaughtered? Lambs? Sure, this was out of Ningyu and Lin Lang's expectations. Tai Feng did not refuse. He flicked his wrist and threw out the interspatial ring containing the Ironwood Divine Spring. Chi! The interspatial ring's speed was very fast, and the friction with the air made a chi-chi sound. In an instant, the interspatial ring arrived in front of Ningyu and Lin Lang. Be careful! At this moment, Ningyu suddenly realized that a cold light suddenly shot out from the interspatial ring and quickly attacked him. Chapter 2347. However, at this moment, Ningyu wanted to retreat, but it was obviously too late. Whoosh! Several cold lights shot out from the interspatial ring. In an instant, the cold lights intertwined and wrapped Ningyu and Rong Hao. Even Lin Lang, who was at the side, was unable to escape the demonic claws and was surrounded by several cold lights. Ha ha ha! Seeing Ningyu and Lin Lang being surrounded by the cold lights, Tai Feng could not help but laugh. In order to trap Ningyu and Lin Lang, he did not hesitate to use the Ironwood Divine Spring as bait. Originally, he thought that there was a possibility of failure, but when he saw Ningyu and Lin Lang being trapped with his own eyes, the stone in his heart was finally put down. Ningyu, Lin Lang, I gave you a chance, but you did not know how to cherish it. Since that's the case, I can only plant a seal in your bodies so that you have no choice but to listen to my orders. Tai Feng's lips curled up as he said, You too. Don't worry, I will only control your bodies and will not erase your consciousness. Is that so? Just as Tai Feng finished his words, an indifferent voice rang in his ears. Whoosh! Following the voice, he saw Ningyu playing with an interspatial ring as he said calmly, If you have the ability to erase my consciousness, I will naturally not mind. Ningyu's action caused Tai Feng to turn pale with fright. He quickly activated the seal on the interspatial ring and wanted to take it back. However, the seal on the interspatial ring had already been erased by Ningyu. It was too late for Tai Feng to take back the interspatial ring. You! Feeling that he had lost control of the interspatial ring, Tai Feng's pupil shrank and he even stuttered. Although there were not 100 sets of Ironwood Divine Spring in the interspatial ring, there were at least 20 sets. Other than the Ironwood Divine Spring that he had given to Tai Muyu, he only had 20 sets. Now that so much of the Ironwood Divine Spring had been obtained by Ningyu, Tai Feng felt like crying. hand over the ironwood divine spring. Taking a deep breath, Tai Feng forced himself to calm down. Although the ironwood divine spring was obtained by Ningyu, Ningyu was also trapped in the array formation at the same time. The cold light array was extremely powerful. Even a pseudo-half-step immortal king like him might not be able to escape if he was trapped inside. If I hand it over just because you ask me to, wouldn't I lose face? Ningyu shrugged his shoulders, then threw 9 portions to Lin Lang and 1 to Rong Hao. He said, "Everyone who sees this has a share. I can't let you return empty-handed." "Thank you." After receiving the ironwood divine spring, Lin Lang thanked Ningyu. After all, the ironwood divine spring was seized by Ningyu. Even if Ningyu did not hand over the ironwood divine spring to him, he had nothing to say. I'm going to die of anger. Tai Feng was so angry that his nose was crooked. His original intention was to use the cold light array to control Ningyu and Lin Lang. But now, even his 20 portions of ironwood divine spring had been divided up. Rise! The furious Tai Feng immediately activated the cold light array, trying to trap Ningyu and Lin Lang inside. Chi! 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 The cold light array was activated and countless rays of cold light covered the sky and attacked Ningyu and Lin Lang. Withdraw! However, Ningyu's face showed no signs of fear. He took out the red demon sword and controlled it to emit a terrifying devouring power. In an instant, the cold light that was attacking him was completely devoured. Swoosh! On the other side, Lin Lang also used his silver-white flying sword to devour the cold light that was attacking him. You guys! Seeing the cold light being devoured by Ningyu and Lin Lang, Tai Feng trembled all over. The plan had completely failed. Trash! Ironwood Fish saw everything that was happening on this side. If it was not for the fact that it was inconvenient for him to attack, he would have killed Tai Feng as well. Father! Tai Feng glared at Ningyu and Lin Lang, then leaped up and flew to the edge of the altar. You take charge of the altar for me. I'll go take care of them. Tai Muyu glared at Tai Feng, then slammed the altar with both hands and shot out. Swoosh! Tai Muyu was a real half-step immortal king. Although his body was unwell, his strength was greatly affected. His overall strength was still much stronger than Tai Feng's. In a one-on-one fight, even 2 Tai Fengs were not his match. You step back first. Seeing that Tai Muyu had personally attacked, Ningyu's face became extremely solemn. He pulled Rong Hao behind him and waved the red demon's sword in his hand. Whoosh! Several rays of sword light attacked Tai Muyu. Child's play. Looking at the sword light attacking him, Tai Muyu opened his mouth and swallowed the sword light into his stomach under the horrified eyes of Ningyu and the others. This change was obviously out of Ningyu's expectation. Ningyu thought that he could rely on the sword light to slightly block Tai Muyu's steps. Who would have thought that it would be defeated in an instant? Let's attack together. Glancing at Lin Lang, Ningyu rose from the ground. He did not hesitate to mobilize the energy in his sea of consciousness, gathered it on his fist, and punched out with a backhand. As for Lin Lang, he was not idle either. He constantly waved the silver-white flying sword, slashing out several rays of sword light. The only difference between him and Ningyu was that Ningyu was wholeheartedly fighting against Tai Muyu. While Lin Lang was fighting against Tai Muyu, his eyes involuntarily looked at the entrance of the number 1 private room. Although Lin Lang's movements were hidden, Rong Hao saw it. Be careful of the entrance of the private room. Rong Hao did not think much and quickly used his unique voice transmission secret technique to inform Ningyu of the news. Crack! However, as soon as Rong Hao informed Ningyu, the door of the number 1 private room suddenly exploded. Whoosh! 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 The private room exploded, and several figures entered in a line. Oh no! Seeing the sudden influx of martial artists, Rong Hao's expression changed dramatically. The figures at the front were none other than marvelous mathematician, Thunder Elixir King, and Du Shibing, with the three of them leading the way. There were dozens of experts behind them. However, the cultivation of these experts was not at the peak of Lord Heaven, but the early stage Lord Heaven, although their cultivation was only at the mid-stage Lord Heaven. Rong Hao did not dare to be careless, because each of these people had a badge on their shoulders. On the badge, there were two big golden words. Tianlan. Obviously, they were from Tianlan, Immortal Kingdom. Oh no, Tai Muyu was equally astonished. He did not have the time to fight against Ningyu. He quickly returned to the altar and gave an order to Tai Feng. Do your best to hold them off for half an hour. Understood. Tai Feng's expression was extremely unpleasant. Under normal circumstances, he could easily hold off marvelous mathematician and the others for 10 hours, let alone half an hour. But now, half an hour was extremely difficult for him. There was no other reason. Both marvelous mathematician and Thunder Elixir King had the same cultivation as him, pseudo-immortal king realm. Chapter 2348. Tai Feng remembered it clearly. Previously, both the godly diviner and the Thunder Elixir King were at the peak of the heavenly Lord realm. But now, he was very surprised that both the godly diviner and the Thunder Elixir King had become half-step immortal kings. But what truly shocked Tai Feng was not this, but Du Shibing's cultivation. Half-step immortal king. What did half-step immortal king mean? His father, Tai Muyu, had cultivated for many years before reaching half-step immortal king. What ability did Du Shibing possess to actually charge into the half-step immortal king realm in such a short period of time? Could it be he had already consumed an immortal king pill? The more Tai Feng thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. An immortal king pill was an immortal king level pill with extremely potent medicinal effects. If it was swallowed by some extremely talented martial artists, there was a great possibility that they could directly skip the half-step immortal king realm from the peak of the heaven monarch realm and advance to the real immortal king realm. Rong Hao, go into the red devil's sword first. Ning, you didn't care about the cultivation of Du Shibing and the others. He turned to Rong Hao and said, although Rong Hao had reached the peak of the heavenly Lord realm, his overall strength wasn't particularly strong. He could deal with ordinary martial artists, but against godly diviner and the others, not only would he be useless, he might even be a burden. Letting him enter the storage ring was the best choice. Swish! Rong Hao knew what he was capable of. He immediately dove into his storage ring and began to lie dormant there, and then, how about it? Do you want to consider joining forces? Lin Lang's voice rang in Ningyu's ears as soon as Rong Hao entered the storage ring. What do you think? Ningyu rolled his eyes. He couldn't handle the current situation by himself. 3 forces. Tai Feng and Tai Muyu had many peak of the heavenly Lord realm fighters. Godly diviner and Du Shibing had many martial artists from the endless sky, celestial kingdom. He and Lin Lang could barely be considered a force. The only thing Ningyu wasn't sure about was how strong Lin Lang's combat strength was. Was he between half-step Immortal King and half-step Immortal King? Or was he strong enough to fight half-step Immortal King? Let's wait and see. Lin Lang smiled and said, the real boss hasn't appeared yet. Boss? Ningyu was slightly stunned and confused. How could there be any big shots? Could it be that Du Shibing, who was at the half-step Immortal King realm, couldn't be considered as a big shot? Let's wait and see. Lin Lang didn't answer Ningyu's question. Instead, he said indifferently, it's not like Tai Feng doesn't have a way to deal with Du Shibing and the others. Rumble, as if to verify the accuracy of Lin Lang's words. With a flick of Tai Feng's wrist, a purple pouch appeared in his hand. Celestial King-level magic treasure, Immortal Trapping Pouch. In terms of grade, the Immortal Trapping Cloth Bag's grade was even higher than Ningyu's disc. It had reached the terrifying peak of the intermediate Immortal King stage. You should know, Ning Yu's sky-reaching disc was merely a mid-stage Immortal King's magic treasure. Typhon, so many years have passed. I didn't expect you to still have the immortal trapping cloth bag. Du Shibing took a step forward and stared at Typhon. He said in a deep voice, "You should know why I'm here today. Hand over the immortal trapping cloth bag and the energy in the altar to me. Maybe I'll be happy and let you go. Or else." Speaking of this, Du Shibing paused for a moment. Then a terrifying aura suddenly emanated from his body and crazily pressed down on Typhon. "Come out." Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from Du Shibing's body, Typhon shouted in a low voice, "Whoosh!" as Typhon's words fell, for figures dashed over from afar. The cultivation of these four martial artists were all at the peak of the Lord Heaven realm. They were only one step away from the pseudo-Immortal King stage. Is this Typhon's trump card? Ning Yu's face was slightly serious, for martial artists at the peak of the Lord Heaven realm were enough to attract his attention, because as long as these four martial artists were willing, they could advance to the pseudo-Immortal King stage at any time. Rumble. As soon as the four martial artists landed next to Typhon, their aura increased again. Whoosh, 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 for auras soared into the sky. At this moment, their cultivation had advanced from the peak of the Lord Heaven realm to the pseudo-Immortal King stage. Now, including him, there were 5 pseudo-Immortal King stage experts on Typhon's side. As for Du Shibing's side, there were only the marvelous mathematician and the Thunder Pellet King. Of course, if Du Shibing, who was at the pseudo-Immortal King stage, was included, the situation was different. Typhon, you should know very well that if I make a move, all of you will die. Du Shibing's expression was still the same. He did not panic because of the appearance of the 4 pseudo-Immortal Kings. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said indifferently, "You will never be able to bridge the gap between pseudo-Immortal Kings and pseudo-Immortal Kings." The word bridge was uttered. Du Shibing rose from the ground, turned into a shadow, and dashed out. Du Shibing's speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was next to Typhon. "All of you attack!" Typhon obviously did not want to face Du Shibing head-on. He grabbed the 2 pseudo-half-step Immortal Kings and threw them towards Du Shibing. Bang! Bang! As Du Shibing said, the gap between pseudo-Immortal Kings and pseudo-Immortal Kings was very big, so big that it was difficult to bridge. He casually threw out 2 punches. The 2 pseudo-half-step Immortal Kings who attacked him were sent flying and fell heavily on the ground. Damn it! Such a change made Typhon's face pale. He knew that Du Shibing was powerful, but he did not expect that he was powerful to this level. 2 pseudo-half-step Immortal Kings were actually not his match. One could imagine, even if he came forward, it would be difficult for him to be his opponent. His eyes turned. Typhon said to Ning Yu and Ning Yu in a deep voice, "Ning Yu, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As long as you kill Du Shibing for me, the previous enmity will be written off. It's not good for us to intervene in the fight between you for the time being." Ning Yu waved his hand and said, Ning Yu is not a hothead. Even if he used all his trump cards and might be able to block Du Shibing's attack, it was extremely stupid to fight with Du Shibing at this time. Damn it! Hearing Ning Yu's refusal, Typhon could not help but curse. The task given to him by Tai Muyu was to resist Du Shibing for about half an hour. With Du Shibing's powerful strength, it would be very difficult to resist for 10 minutes, let alone half an hour. You are Ning Yu? However, Ning Yu did not want to intervene, but Du Shibing took the initiative to come to him. He stared at Ning Yu and said, "Half-step Heavenly Lord realm cultivation. I really don't know how Qian Linkong was killed by you. How about this? You come over and kowtow to me a few times. Then release your mind to let me control it. I can spare your life. Are you sure you are talking to me?" Chapter 2349. Humph! Du Scheibing snorted coldly. Don't be so shameless. I don't even need to use my full strength to deal with trash like you. I can easily kill you. Ningyu smiled, but did not answer Du Scheibing. Don't you know how to bluff? Bluffing doesn't cost anything anyway. Say as much as you can. Marvelous diviner. Du Scheibing was so angry that his nose was crooked. This was intolerable. He turned to Marvelous Diviner and said, Go and capture him, dead or alive. Yes. Marvelous Diviner nodded. Previously on the streets of Violet City, he knew that he was no match for Ningyu, so he immediately returned to report to Du Scheibing. But now, he had devoured 1/5 of the Immortal King elixirs, and his cultivation had already advanced to the pseudo-half-step Immortal King realm. At this time, he thought he could easily win against Ningyu. Swoosh! Master God Diviner's figure flickered as he charged toward Ningyu. Do you need my help? Lin Lang asked when he saw Marvelous Diviner charging toward Ningyu. Yes. Ningyu nodded. I'm no match for Marvelous Diviner, so I hope you can help me. Lin Lang did not expect Ningyu to say that, and he felt a little awkward. He was just being polite. He did not want to reveal his strength. I've been suffering from a cold recently, so you should go and deal with Marvelous Diviner. Lin Lang quickly found a way out of this embarrassing situation. You're the best. Ningyu gave him a thumbs up, and then he slashed at Marvelous Diviner with a red demon sword. Whoosh! In a split second, several sword rays shot out, covering the sky and earth, slashing toward Marvelous Diviner. Child's play. Marvelous Diviner did not seem to care about the sword rays. He clenched his fists and opened a path in front of him. Chi! 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 The sword rays that Ningyu slashed out were shattered by Marvelous Diviner's fists. As for Marvelous Diviner, his path was unimpeded, and he rushed to the front of Ningyu. In your next life, Master God Diviner said viciously, there are some things that... Look behind you. Ningyu rolled his eyes and pointed behind Master God Diviner. Trying to play tricks? Master God Diviner's lips curled up into a sinister smile. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You want to take advantage of the moment I turn around to attack me? Ha ha ha. I have to say you're very naive. I can believe it, but I absolutely won't. Uft. However, before Master God Diviner could finish his sentence, he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. At this critical moment, Master God Diviner hurriedly turned around. Poo-pee-you, pee-you. However, it was already too late for Master God Diviner to turn around. As soon as he turned around, he saw several sword rays speeding towards his head. Impossible! Master God Diviner exclaimed. He had already destroyed all the sword lights. Why did the sword gleams recombine? Nothing is impossible. Ningyu said calmly, I've already warned you, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Don't blame me. While they were talking, Ningyu held the red demon sword and stabbed it at Master God Diviner's heart. Uft! With his heart pierced, Master God Diviner did not even have time to say anything before his body fell backward. At that moment, Master God Diviner, who was half a step to the Immortal King realm, was killed. Whoosh! The sudden death of Master God Diviner caused everyone in the number 1 booth to turn pale, except for Du Scheibing and the Thunder Pellet King. Even Typhone was shocked. They could not have imagined it. Even someone as powerful as Master God Diviner was killed by Ningyu with ease. Was a half step to the Heavenly Lord Realm Martial Artist really that powerful? Thunder Pellet King. Du Scheibing's expression was extremely cold. He looked at the Thunder Pellet King and said in a deep voice, Bring a few men with you and bring Ningyu to me. Understood. The Thunder Pellet King nodded heavily. In fact, if Ningyu could kill Master God Diviner, he could also kill him. However, he had to obey Du Scheibing's request. Hence, he brought more than 10 mid-stage heavenly monarch realm experts from the endless sky immortal empire and rushed towards Ningyu. Devour! Ningyu did not turn around to look at the Thunder Pellet King and the others. After killing Master God Diviner, he squatted down and placed his palm on Master God Diviner's head. Uft! It only took 3 seconds. Master God Diviner's body withered, leaving only a piece of human skin. Rumble! As soon as Ningyu devoured Master God Diviner's human skin, Lin Lang and the Thunder Pellet King began to fight. In fact, Lin Lang did not plan to help Ningyu in the beginning. After all, the real battle had not begun. It was unwise to waste energy now. However, when he saw Ningyu devouring Master God Diviner, he changed his mind and decided to kill the Thunder Pellet King. Both Master God Diviner and the Thunder Pellet King were pseudo-half-step immortal kings. The energy in their bodies, treasures, and pills were countless. Instead of letting Ningyu take advantage of them, he might as well join in and grab some of them. Otherwise, when Ningyu killed the Thunder Pellet King, he wouldn't even be able to touch a hair. Rumble! Lin Lang wielded a silvery white flying sword and charged left and right. Not long after, the Thunder Pellet King and the other sky-billowing immortal kingdom martial artists were all killed. Only the Thunder Pellet King and Lin Lang were left on the battlefield. Damn it! The Thunder Pellet King took a few steps back and turned his head to look at the fallen sky-billowing immortal kingdom martial artists. His expression turned extremely ugly. Originally, he thought that Ningyu was very strong and took a great risk to kill Ningyu. Who would have thought the young martial artist standing next to Ningyu was as strong as Ningyu? That's right. You deserve to die. Lin Lang shrugged and charged out again with the silvery white flying sword in his hand. Hua! In an instant, several sword lights separated from the silver white flying sword and attacked the Thunder Core Monarch all at once. Crack! In the nick of time, the Thunder Pellet King did not panic. Instead, he took out a pill and threw it into his mouth. Boom! The moment the pill entered his mouth, the Thunder Pellet King's aura soared again. Bang! 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 Along with a series of muffled sounds, the Thunder Pellet King's aura was close to a true half-step immortal king. At this rate, the Thunder Pellet King only needed a little more time and his aura would break through to the half-step immortal king realm. However, at this moment, a shadow flashed past Lin Lang and appeared in front of the Thunder Pellet King in the blink of an eye. Puff! The shadow suddenly punched out with his right hand and hit the Thunder Pellet King's head. What the F***? Seeing the Thunder Pellet King's miserable state, Lin Lang could not help but curse. The reason why he attacked was because he wanted the Thunder Pellet King's treasures, pills, and the energy in his body. But now Ningyu attacked and killed the Thunder Pellet King while he was raising his aura. The Thunder Pellet King's treasures, pills, and energy all fell into Ningyu's hands. Don't be nervous. Chapter 2350. At least you know what's good for you. Lin Lang rolled his eyes at Ningyu. Immediately, he unleashed the terrifying devouring power within his body and started to devour the Thunder Pill King. Chi! Just like Ningyu. In just 3 seconds, the Thunder Pellet King was devoured into a piece of human skin. Swoosh! After the skin was devoured, a spatial ring fell to the ground. The Thunder Pellet King reacted quickly and caught the ring before it fell to the ground. Not bad. Lin Lang used his perception to probe the contents of the ring and nodded in satisfaction. The Thunder Pellet King lived up to his name. There were hundreds of elixirs in the ring. Although they weren't Immortal King grade, most of them were peak Heavenly Monarch grade. I can use them to break through to the half-step Immortal King realm. The dissatisfaction towards Ningyu in Lin Lang's mind was completely swept away. He had been looking for resources to break through to the half-step Immortal King realm before entering the Immortal Court. After all, The immortal court was a dangerous place. He would die a horrible death if he wasn't careful. As long as he could break through to the half-step immortal king realm, he could live a carefree life in the immortal court. Du Shibing, are the 2 helpers I hired at a high price okay? Typhon was the most excited about the death of the Thunder Pellet King and marvelous mathematician. He smirked and said to Du Shibing, I'm afraid even you won't be able to handle Ningyu and Lin Lang together. Du Shibing tried his best to stay calm. He had just reached the half-step immortal king realm, so the immortal chi in his body wasn't stable. In other words, his overall combat strength was only slightly stronger than a pseudo-half-step immortal king. Otherwise, he could defeat Ningyu and Lin Lang on his own without the help of marvelous mathematician and Thunder Pellet King. We don't want to get involved in your fight for now. How could Ningyu not know what Typhon was thinking? He was using him and Lin Lang as a shield to stop Du Shibing. Ning, you didn't want to help others. He waved his hand and said, without our participation, Typhon will be easily defeated or even killed. Tai Feng's face turned extremely cold. He wanted Du Shibing and Ningyu to fight, but Ningyu actually chose to stay neutral. What about you? Ningyu pursed his lips and said, You just said that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We're already doing you a great favor by not joining hands with Du Shibing. Don't tell me you want us to join hands with Du Shibing to deal with you? Why are you talking nonsense with him? Let's watch the show first. Lin Lang retreated to an empty space behind him and started fiddling with the Thunder Pellet King's spatial ring. Hey, give me some pills. Don't think about eating them all by yourself. Ningyu was very dissatisfied with Lin Lang, muttering as he walked towards him. Sha. Du Shibing glanced at Ningyu and Lin Lang before walking towards Typhon. Du Shibing might be walking slowly, but the pressure he gave Typhon was very strong, because no matter what, Du Shibing was also a half-step immortal king, while Typhon was just a fake half-step immortal king. Damn it! All of you go! Seeing Du Shibing walking towards him, Typhon hurriedly shouted, I'll give anyone who can touch Du Shibing a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring. Boom! Tai Feng's words moved the martial artists at the peak of the heavenly monarch realm at the edge of the altar. With a great reward, there would always be a brave man. If Typhon asked them to kill Du Shibing, they naturally didn't have the ability to do so. But now that they only met Du Shibing, they were confident. After all, their cultivation was at the peak of the heavenly monarch realm, which was not much different from Du Shibing. If he just touched it, the danger should be very low. Whoosh! Only a few martial artists at the peak of the heavenly monarch realm responded to Tai Feng's first order. But this time there were more than a dozen martial artists at the peak of the heavenly monarch realm who attacked Du Shibing. Heaven's sins can be forgiven, but one's own sins cannot be forgiven. Du Shibing snorted coldly. Immediately, the immortal chi in his body wrapped around his fist, and he increased his speed to the limit. Bang! 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 A series of crisp and clear sounds rang out. More than a dozen martial artists at the peak of the heavenly monarch realm were all defeated by Du Shibing and fell heavily to the ground. Some of the weaker martial artists died on the spot. Even the few that survived had weak auras and were on the brink of death. For a portion of Ironwood Divine Spring, these people really didn't care about their lives. Typhon, I'll give you a chance to live. Du Shibing casually killed these trash, blocking his way, and looked at Typhon quietly. He said, Submit to me, and I can promise you the position of the great general of the heavenly kingdom. Uft! Typhon spat out a mouthful of saliva and said coldly, Sooner or later, I will kill my way to the soaring sky immortal empire and kill everyone there. You are determined to go against the imperial advisor, aren't you? Du Shibing said in a deep voice. Imperial advisor? Ha ha ha! Typhon threw his head back and laughed maniacally. After laughing, Typhon changed the topic and shouted coldly, "When my father recovers, it will be the time of Dushida's death." "Is that so?" However, just as Typhon's voice fell, an indifferent voice rang in his ears. Swoosh! Hearing this, Typhon's expression changed drastically. Dushida! Obviously, the person who spoke was the imperial advisor of the heavenly kingdom, Dushida. Like Tai Muyu, Dushida's cultivation was a genuine half-step immortal king. However, Dushida was not injured and was in his peak condition. In this case, once Dushida came to the number 1 private room, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Sneaky bastard, come out if you dare!" Typhon forced himself to calm down and said, "A clown that only knows how to hide in the dark. He can't even show himself." "As you wish." "Kacha!" The void trembled. Then a gray-robed old man slowly appeared in front of everyone. Immortal King? The moment they saw the old man in gray, Ning Yu's and Lin Lang's expressions changed dramatically. According to their observation, the aura emitted by the old man in gray seemed to have touched the threshold of a mortal king. At this moment, there was only one thought in their minds. They wanted to confirm whether the old man in gray was a real immortal king. If the old man in gray was an immortal king, they would definitely retreat immediately without hesitation. Because against an immortal king, even if the immortal king suppressed his aura to the half-step immortal king realm, they had no chance of winning. Not an immortal king. Soon, Ning Yu received Ning Lu's voice transmission from the Red Devil Sword. Ning Lu was the world tree. As his cultivation increased, he had more memories in his mind. According to his judgment, the old man in gray was not a real immortal king, but a half-step immortal king. He was only half a step away from the immortal king realm. In other words, the old man in gray's current strength had reached the limit that this continent could bear. If he was any stronger, the space of this continent would completely shatter. Generally speaking, a powerful martial artist like the old man in gray would not leave the immortal court unless there was something very important. Chapter 2351. Dushida. Seeing the old man's face, Typhon said word by word, "National advisor." Du Shibing's reaction was different from Typhon's. After Dushida came out, his face was filled with ecstasy as he hurriedly said, although Dushida was his uncle, he would still address Dushida as state preceptor. Yes. Dushida just nodded at Du Shibing and then walked towards the altar step by step. Swish! Seeing Dushida's direction, Typhon immediately jumped up and blocked in front of him. "Get lost." Dushida casually waved a fist. "Not good." Facing Dushida's attack, Typhon did not dare to be careless. He quickly gathered the immortal chi in his body on his fist and hit Dushida's fist with a backhand. Crack! The two collided. Dushida continued to move forward. On the other hand, Typhon flew straight to the side. Without caring about Typhon's life or death, Du Shibing stopped 10 meters away from the altar. Tai Muyu, the grievances between us can be settled today. Looking at the Tai Muyu on the altar, Du Shibing said lightly, "Sigh." On the altar, Tai Muyu opened his eyes, sighed, and said, "What will come will come. I originally thought I could use the formation around the number 1 box to stop you for a while, but who would have thought that you have already reached a profound level and your strength has improved greatly. Soon you will break the formation. Well, it's time to settle things." Swish! While talking, the Tai Muyu opened his mouth and swallowed all the liquid in the altar. Chi, chi, chi. Even those martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven who were pouring energy into the altar were not spared. The Tai Muyu's swallowing power was extremely strong. These martial artists at the peak of the Lord of Heaven were swallowed before they could react. "Why bother?" Dushida said calmly, "As long as you give me the mother spring of the iron with divine spring, I can spare your ironwood family. If you want the mother spring, it depends on whether you have the ability." Tai Muyu shook his wrist and took out a golden jade bottle from his bosom. There wasn't much liquid in the jade bottle, but even Ningyu and Lin Lang could sense the terrifying aura emanating from it. Here comes the highlight. Lin Lang took a deep breath, turned his head, and said to Ningyu, "Listen to my command later. Use all your trump cards and snatch the mother spring from the ironwood fish." "What is the mother spring?" Ningyu was puzzled. The so-called mother spring is the essence of the ironwood divine spring. Lin Lang explained, "The ironwood divine spring that we obtained from Tai Feng was only diluted. To put it simply, the mother spring in Tai Muyu's hands is equivalent to 10%. Tens of thousands of portions of ironwood divine spring." Hiss! Upon hearing Lin Lang's explanation, Ningyu sucked in a breath of cold air. Tens of thousands of copies? Could it be that exaggerated? One had to know that a portion of ironwood divine spring was enough for an ordinary heaven monarch martial artist to increase by 1 rank. If the mother spring was so terrifying, wouldn't it be even more terrifying than the immortal king elixir? After snatching the mother spring, we will each get a portion. Ignoring Ningyu's shock, Lin Lang continued, "Don't hold back. Even if you only get half of the mother spring, it will be enough for you to break through to the immortal king realm." Why didn't the ironwood fish break through to the immortal king realm? Ningyu frowned. Logically, with the mother spring in the hands of the ironwood fish, there was no reason for him not to break through to the immortal king realm. The people of the ironwood family cannot use the ironwood divine spring. In order to get Ningyu's help, Lin Lang had to explain again. "Anyway, remember this. You only have the mother spring in your eyes. Other things have nothing to do with you." "I know." Ningyu nodded. Lin Lang said it so seriously. He more or less understood how precious the mother spring was. Boom! While Ningyu was still talking to Lin Lang, the ironwood fish was already fighting with Dushita. Rumble! Not only were the ironwood fish and Dushita fighting, but Tai Feng and Du Shibing were also fighting. Although Tai Feng was injured by Dushita, Tai Feng did not hesitate to burn his blood essence to increase his strength, forcing a draw with Du Shibing. Supreme Box 1. 2 battlefields. Tai Feng and Du Shibing were evenly matched. In a short period of time, no one could do anything to the other. As for the ironwood fish and Dushita, it was a one-sided fight. Dushita had the absolute upper hand. As the battle progressed, the ironwood fish's situation became more and more dangerous. In the end, even the aura of his body began to decline. "Do I have to use that move after all?" Seeing that he was about to be defeated by Dushita, the ironwood fish's face showed a look of unwillingness. The ironwood family had a secret technique that could instantly increase one's combat power by several times. But the price was very high. Every time he used the secret technique, he needed hundreds of years, or even tens of thousands of years to recover. Fight! Looking at the fierce battle between Tai Feng and Du Shibing, the ironwood fish gritted his teeth, took out a white pill, and threw it into his mouth. Crack! As the pill entered his stomach, an extremely terrifying aura emitted from the ironwood fish's body. Not good. Dushita was not a stupid person. Back then, when the immortal king of the endless sky celestial kingdom fought against the immortal king of the ironwood race, the immortal king of the ironwood race had an absolute advantage. However, the immortal king of the ironwood race used this move and eventually perished together with the immortal king of the endless sky celestial kingdom. Although Dushita had expected this situation when he came here, he was still a little nervous when it really happened. Taking a deep breath, Dushita took out a few fist-sized black beads. Go! With a low shout, the black beads flew straight towards the ironwood fish. Boom! When the black beads approached the ironwood fish, they suddenly exploded. The terrifying shockwave of the explosion covered the sky and suppressed the ironwood fish. Block! The ironwood fish's face was expressionless. Energy emerged from his body, forming a protective shield around his body. Chi, chi, chi. Countless shockwaves from the explosions continuously battered the energy shield. If this situation continued, it would not be long before the protective shield in front of the ironwood fish was reopened. Boom, boom, boom. As it turned out, Sheeta's preparation was useless. Before the black beads broke the protective shield in front of the ironwood fish, the ironwood fish's aura began to soar rapidly. In a short period of time, the ironwood fish's aura had recovered to the half-step Immortal King realm, and had reached the limit that this continent could bear. In other words, the ironwood fish's current strength was equivalent to Sheeta's. Sheeta wanted to rely on pure strength to defeat the ironwood fish. It was almost a fool's dream. All the people of the sky endless celestial kingdom should die. The ironwood fish looked coldly at Sheeta and said coldly, "After I kill you, I will go to the sky endless celestial kingdom and kill them all." Not good. The ironwood fish's face changed dramatically halfway through his cold words. Bang! A cold light swept out from the void in front of him and hit his wrist. Swish! All of a sudden, Chapter 2352. Swoosh! The sudden change caused Tai Muyu's expression to change drastically. The mother spring of the ironwood divine spring was the key to opening a secret realm in the immortal court. Once it was lost, he would lose control of that secret realm. So, without another word, ironwood fish immediately gave up on attacking Sheeta and turned to chase after the golden jade bottle. Your opponent is me. However, before Tai Muyu could take a few steps, he was blocked by Sheeta. Sheeta did not waste words with Tai Muyu. He immediately gathered energy on his fist and punched out. Damn it! Helpless, Tai Muyu could only temporarily give up on chasing the golden jade bottle and chose to meet Sheeta's fist. Bang! The two fists collided. Sheeta and Tai Muyu both retreated a few steps before stopping. At this moment, the distance between them and the golden jade bottle was exactly the same. They stopped fighting and stood on the spot, staring at the golden jade bottle. No one made the first move, because they were very clear. Whoever snatched the golden jade bottle first would be attacked from behind by the other person. At this moment, the situation became a stalemate. Attack! While Tai Muyu and Sheeta were in a stalemate, Lin Lang did not stay idle. He first shouted at Ningyu. Then his body flashed and rushed towards the golden bottle. Swoosh! Swoosh! Seeing Lin Lang rush out, Ningyu immediately followed. His speed was not any slower than Lin Lang's. Damn it! Ningyu and Lin Lang's attack caused Sheeta and Tai Muyu's expressions to turn ugly. The two of them were fighting for the golden bottle, but Ningyu and Lin Lang actually wanted to stop them. This was intolerable. The enraged Tai Muyu and Sheeta seemed to form a united front and both rushed out. Their target was clear. Even if they could not get the golden bottle, they could not let Ningyu and Lin Lang get it. I will stop them. Turning his head to look at Sheeta and the iron-wooden fish who were chasing after him, Lin Lang clenched his teeth and hurriedly transmitted his voice to Sheeta. You must snatch the mother spring, then leave at all costs. I will think of a way to find you. Rumble. After giving the instructions, Lin Lang took out hundreds of talismans from his bosom. Chi. He channeled his immortal energy into the talisman. Voila! With a flick of his wrist, hundreds of talismans appeared in front of the ironwood fish and Sheeta. Explode! Following Lin Lang's low shout, hundreds of talismans exploded at once. Rumble. The shock wave produced by the explosion of the talisman was extremely powerful. Not only were Tai Muyu and Sheeta affected, even Tai Feng and Du Shibing were greatly affected. Pa! While Tai Muyu and the others were fighting against the aftereffects of the talisman's explosion, Ningyu reacted quickly and held the golden bottle firmly in his hand. Sky-reaching disc. After obtaining the golden bottle, Ningyu immediately took out the sky-reaching disc and threw it into the air. Ka! The sky-reaching disc spun rapidly. Furthermore, it was getting faster and faster. 1 second later, the void around the sky-reaching disc suddenly split open, and a gap appeared in front of Ningyu. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Ningyu immediately entered the space crack. Swish! As soon as Ningyu stepped into the spatial rift, the sky-reaching disc under his feet also disappeared. As for the space crack, it completely closed not long after Ningyu and the sky-reaching disc disappeared. In the distance, Tai Muyu and Dushida could not help but roar angrily when they saw the crack closing. Losing the mother spring of the Ironwood Divine Spring meant that they could not open the secret realm and lose control of it. This loss was greater than the heavens. Chase! Tai Muyu and Dushida looked at each other and immediately formed a short-term cooperation to chase after Ningyu. One had to know, in that secret realm, there was the divine liquid necessary to break through to the Immortal King realm. Without the divine liquid, no matter how talented one was, no matter how many Immortal King elixirs he swallowed, he could not advance to the Immortal King realm. Now that the Mother Spring was taken away by Ningyu, how could Tai Muyu and Dushida not be angry? At the same time, they had not lost their minds. Even if Ningyu took away the Mother Spring, he should not be able to refine it in a short period of time. As long as they could catch up to Ningyu, they would definitely be able to snatch the Mother Spring back. Swish! Ningyu did not know what Tai Muyu and Dushida were thinking. In order to increase the distance between them, Ningyu did not hesitate to burn his blood essence to increase his speed. With the support of the sky-reaching disc, in addition to Ningyu burning some of the Mother Spring of the Ironwood Divine Spring, the speed of the sky-reaching disc reached its limit. Very soon, Ningyu pulled away from Tai Muyu and Dushida. Moreover, according to the speed of Tai Muyu and Dushida, they might not be able to catch up even after 3 days. Phew! Sitting cross-legged on the sky-reaching disc, Ningyu could not help but let out a long sigh. To be honest, the first time he saw Tai Muyu and Dushida display the strength of a half-step Immortal King, Ningyu's heart collapsed. Although his strength was comparable to a half-step Immortal King, Tai Muyu and Dushida had reached the peak of a half-step Immortal King, which was the limit that this continent could bear. Now it was good. With the help of the sky-reaching disc and the Mother Spring of the Ironwood Divine Spring, he had a certain distance from Tai Muyu and the others. With a flick of his wrist, Ningyu sat on the sky-reaching disc and took out the golden bottle. Looking up and down at the golden bottle, Ningyu was secretly surprised. The fact that the golden bottle could contain the Mother Spring was enough to show that it was extraordinary. According to Ningyu's preliminary observation, the level of this golden bottle had also reached the terrifying Immortal King level, an Immortal King level magic treasure. However, the golden bottle was an early Immortal King level magic treasure, while the sky-reaching disc was an intermediate Immortal King level magic treasure. Why don't I break through to the Lord of Heaven realm now? Ningyu gritted his teeth and immediately opened the golden bottle, pouring out a quarter of the Mother Spring inside. Gulp! He did not think much about it. Ningyu opened his mouth and poured a quarter of the Mother Spring into his mouth. The Mother Spring flowed down his throat and into Ningyu's stomach. As soon as the Mother Spring entered his stomach, Ningyu immediately activated his spell and began to cultivate. Boom! Originally, the energy in Ningyu's sea of consciousness was very large, enough for him to easily break through to the heavenly monarch realm. Now that he added a quarter of the Mother Spring, in an instant, Ningyu could not suppress the energy in his sea of consciousness, causing it to completely explode. Whoosh! In an instant, the void trembled, and a black mass of tribulation clouds appeared. the heavenly monarch tribulation. At this time, Ning Yu's heavenly monarch tribulation had officially arrived. Rong Tianjun, take care of them for me first. Ning Yu let Rong Tianjun out of the red demon sword and handed over the storage ring, the sky-reaching disc, and everything else on him, except for the remaining 3/4 of the mother spring, to Rong Tianjun for safekeeping. Ning Yu planned to rely on his physical strength to overcome the heavenly monarch tribulation, without any external help. This was because the tribulation clouds of the heavenly monarch tribulation were a kind of tempering for the god of war body. If Ning Yu could successfully overcome the tribulation clouds of the heavenly monarch tribulation, then his god of war body would be close to perfection. Swish! Chapter 2353. Good timing. Ning Yu raised his head and looked at the tribulation cloud that was rushing towards him. With a loud shout, he stomped his feet on the ground and charged forward instead of retreating. Boom! In an instant, the thick tribulation cloud smashed onto Ning Yu's body. A heart-wrenching pain swept through Ning Yu's body. Enduring the pain coming from his body, Ning Yu unleashed his war god physique to the extreme and charged into the tribulation clouds again. Whoosh! Ning Yu seemed to have angered the tribulation cloud. Hundreds of tribulation clouds were all rushing towards Ning Yu. Each tribulation cloud was like a whip lashing at Ning Yu's body. Pa, pa, pa. All kinds of slapping sounds could be heard continuously. Master, can Ning Yu really pass the tribulation of Heavenly Lord? In the distance, Ning Lu, the Dark Emperor, the double-horned demonic beast, the Red Fiend, and the others all came out of the Red Fiend's sword. The double-horned demonic beast looked at Ning Yu, who was struggling in the tribulation cloud, and said hesitantly, "I'm not very sure." Rong Hao shook his head and said, "Ning Yu's tribulation of Heavenly Lord is several times stronger than mine." "Several times stronger than yours?" Hearing Rong Hao's words, the Dark Emperor exclaimed. Who was Rong Hao? The experts of the Celestial Court were extremely powerful. Ning Yu's tribulation of Heavenly Lord was several times stronger than his. Strictly speaking, it should be several times stronger than all the tribulation of Heavenly Lord I have seen. Rong Hao said in a deep voice. Hiss! This time, except for the Dark Emperor, even Ning Lu and the Red Fiend, who were calm, gasped. They had seen Ning Yu go through the tribulation many times. Every time, Ning Yu would get through it unscathed. However, the tribulation of Heavenly Lord was different from the ordinary tribulation cloud. That was because passing through the Heavenly Lord tribulation was equivalent to being on par with the Heavenly Way and having the opportunity to touch the threshold of the Heavenly Way. Ning Yu did not know about the conversation between the Dark Emperor and Rong Hao. Oh my God, it really hurts. Ning Yu couldn't help but curse as he was bombarded by countless tribulation clouds. Although the god of war body was strong, this was the Heavenly Lord tribulation. Strictly speaking, fortunately, Ning Yu had swallowed 1/4 of the wood divine spring, mother spring. Otherwise, just the impact of this tribulation cloud would have been enough to kill him. The first round of tribulation clouds quickly dissipated. Hua! After the tribulation cloud disappeared, Ning Yu's figure flashed and fell to the ground from midair. Gulp! Without another word, Ning Yu once again swallowed 1/4 of the mother spring. After swallowing the mother spring, Ning Yu immediately sat down cross-legged. He wanted to use the little time he had to recuperate and recover to his peak condition. Rumble. However, as soon as Ning Yu sat down, the tribulation clouds in the sky came crashing down. Damn it! Cursing in his heart, Ning Yu had no choice but to rush out again and use his body to withstand the impact of the second round of tribulation clouds. Fortunately, the effect of the ironwood divine spring mother spring was extremely overbearing. A quarter of the mother spring only took a second to allow Ningyu to recover to his peak condition. Bang, bang, bang. The power of the second round of tribulation clouds was much stronger than the first round. Pft, pft, pft. Under the impact of this round of tribulation clouds, Ningyu even spat out a few mouthfuls of dark red blood, and the aura of his body began to drop sharply. Swallow again. At this critical moment, Ningyu couldn't care less. He once again swallowed a quarter of the mother spring. After swallowing the mother spring, Ningyu's aura soared once again. Not long after, the second round of tribulation clouds dissipated. Next, the third round of tribulation clouds, the fourth round of tribulation clouds, all the way to the ninth round of tribulation clouds, all came crashing down. In order to withstand the 9 rounds of tribulation clouds, Ningyu did not hesitate to swallow the entire mother spring, and the energy in his sea of consciousness was completely exhausted. Ningyu even burned his blood essence to increase his strength, and finally withstood the impact of the 9 rounds of tribulation clouds. Whoosh! After the 9th round of tribulation clouds dissipated, Ningyu let out a long breath, thinking that it was a close shave. Fortunately, there was the ironwood divine spring mother spring, and the huge amount of energy stored in his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, it was almost impossible for him to withstand the impact of the 9 rounds of tribulation clouds. Boom! The heavenly Lord Tribulation had always been wave after wave. The 9 rounds of tribulation clouds disappeared. The 10th round, which was also the last round of tribulation clouds, suddenly descended. Is this the last one? Ningyu looked up at the tribulation clouds rushing towards him, and his face became extremely solemn. The last tribulation cloud was not big. On the contrary, it was only as thick as an arm. But Ningyu knew better than anyone else. Even an expert half a step to the Immortal King level would find it difficult to withstand its attack. Crack! Ningyu did not think much about it. He stomped on the ground, and suddenly a huge crack appeared on the ground. As for Ningyu's body, it shot out rapidly. Seeing that Ningyu was going to fight the last tribulation cloud, Rong Hao, Ning Lu, the Dark Emperor, and the others all looked at the sky, and no one moved their eyes. Swish! 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 However, at this moment, the space in the distance suddenly split open, and several figures rushed straight here. Oh no! Seeing them, Rong Hao's face changed dramatically. There were a total of 4 people, and Rong Hao was very familiar with each of them. The 2 in front were Tai Muyu and Du Shida. The 2 behind were Tai Feng and Du Shibing. There he is! When Tai Muyu and Du Shida saw Ningyu in the air, they both looked ecstatic. In order to catch up with Ningyu, they did not hesitate to burn their blood essence and use all their trump cards to increase their speed. But even so, it still took them several hours to catch up with Ningyu. No, he is going through a tribulation. Tai Muyu was just about to rush to Ningyu, but he hurriedly stopped, and his face changed slightly. Is it the great tribulation of the Immortal King? Du Shida also stopped. However, Du Shida's expression was very exaggerated, because he found that the tribulation cloud Ningyu was facing was extremely powerful, so powerful that even he was not sure that he could resist it. He was a half-step Immortal King. The tribulation cloud that even he could not resist could only be produced by the great tribulation of the Immortal King level. I don't care what tribulation he is going through. Anyway, he stole my mother spring, so he must return it to me. Tai Muyu's face was cold, and his eyes instantly moved to Rong Hao and Ning Lu. Swish! He did not say much. Tai Muyu and Du Shida looked at each other, and then immediately rushed out, trying to catch Rong Hao and the others. Go! At the critical moment, a huge palm appeared, suddenly grabbed Rong Hao and the others, and flew backward. Explode! As soon as the huge palm retreated, thousands of talismans exploded. With so many talismans exploding, the shock wave was no less powerful than the one in the Supreme No. 1 box. Damn it! The sudden change made Tai Muyu and Dushita curse silently and hurriedly retreat. They were not hotheads. These talismans were all immortal king talismans. When a single one exploded, the power might be limited. But with so many exploding at the same time, even if they were half-step immortal kings, they did not dare to say that they could resist 100% of it. What the hell is Ning Yu doing? Why didn't he leave, but is going through the tribulation here? On the other side, the huge palm put Rong Hao and the others down, and a figure appeared. Lin Lang. Obviously, it was Lin Lang who saved Rong Hao and the others at the moment of danger. Chapter 2354. Mother Spring. Hearing Lin Lang's words, Rong Hao was slightly startled. Obviously, he did not know what the Mother Spring was. Previously, when Lin Lang mentioned the Ironwood Divine Spring to Ningyu, he had already entered the Red Demon Sword. Therefore, he knew nothing about the Mother Spring. Didn't Ningyu tell you? Rong Hao's action made Lin Lang frown. He had desperately tried to stop Tai Muyu and Dushita in order to get half of the Mother Spring. If not for the Mother Spring, he would not have used so many talismans. Even, he had used thousands of talismans to save Rong Hao and the others. With so many talismans, if he could not get the Mother Spring, he probably would not even have tears to cry. One had to know. He had used up all of his trump cards in his two powerful attacks. Lin Lang. Tai Muyu's face was extremely cold. He knew that he could not interfere with Ning Yu's Lord of Heaven Tribulation and could only wait for Ning Yu to finish. However, Ning Yu's friends were different. If he could capture Ning Yu's friend before Ning Yu successfully transcended the heavenly tribulation, then even if Ning Yu successfully transcended the heavenly tribulation, he would still have the absolute initiative and make Ning Yu hesitate to take action. But now, Lin Lang's interference made him very angry. I will settle the score with you later. Lin Lang glared at Rong Hao and immediately turned to look at Tai Muyu, saying coldly, "They are people I want to protect. Before you touch them, you better consider withstanding my talisman attack." While speaking, Lin Lang's palm reached into his bosom and was about to take out a talisman. Swish, 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 swish. Lin Lang's action directly caused Tai Muyu, Dushita, Tai Feng, and Du Shibing to retreat. Lin Lang's cultivation was not strong, only at the peak of Lord of Heaven, but he had a lot of talismans. At this time, Tai Muyu and Dushita did not want to fight Lin Lang first. For a moment, the scene became quiet. Lin Lang stood in front of Rong Hao and the others, his arms crossed as he stared at Ning Yu, who was undergoing his tribulation in midair. In fact, at this time, Lin Lang really hoped that Ning Yu could successfully transcend the tribulation. After all, the Mother Spring was the most important. He was also a member of the Immortal Court. In order to obtain the Mother Spring, he even acted as a spy and was recruited by Tai Feng. Now that the opportunity was right in front of him, he did not want to give it up. But Lin Lang was also very clear. Whether or not he could obtain the Mother Spring depended entirely on Ning Yu. In other words, it all depended on whether Ning Yu had exhausted the Mother Spring. Puff! Ning Yu did not know about the worries in Lin Lang's heart. At this moment, his body had forcefully withstood the last tribulation cloud, and his internal organs had suffered a great impact. At the final stage of the Heavenly Monarch tribulation, what was really tested was not the strength of the body, but the willpower. If Ning Yu could hold on for another 3 minutes, his tribulation of Lord of Heaven would end, and he would be able to enjoy the fruits of victory. But if he couldn't hold on for more than 3 minutes, he would be severely injured and half of his body would be paralyzed. In the worst case, he would be blasted into smithereens on the spot. Drip, drip. Time passed. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, 1 minute had passed. Uft! In midair, Ning Yu forcefully endured the pain from his body and vomited a large mouthful of blood. 2 more minutes. Ning Yu clenched his teeth and persevered. Crack! Crack! The second minute, Ning Yu paid the price of 2 broken ribs. The third minute, Ning Yu's entire mental state had fallen to the bottom. Boom! When the fourth minute arrived, the tribulation cloud in midair suddenly dissipated, and what replaced it was a giant golden bronze cauldron. Swish! Ning Yu did not have any hesitation. He immediately used his speed to the extreme and jumped into the bronze cauldron. Chi chi chi! As soon as Ning Yu jumped into the bronze cauldron, the heavenly tribulation liquid in it continuously entered his body. Crack! 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 Ning Yu's broken ribs and the injuries of his internal organs were also healing at an extremely terrifying speed. In a short second, not only did Ning Yu repair his broken ribs, but even his 5 viscera and 6 bowels had completed the transformation. Boom! Furthermore, with the absorption of the heavenly tribulation liquid, Ning Yu's aura was also increasing rapidly. Originally, even if he passed the heavenly monarch tribulation, his cultivation was only at the early stage of heavenly monarch. However, his heavenly tribulation liquid was extremely terrifying, and the energy it contained was even comparable to the ironwood divine spring. Under such circumstances, his cultivation advanced to the middle stage of heavenly monarch almost effortlessly, and he was even advancing to the late stage of heavenly monarch. Swish! Swish! However, just as Ning Yu was about to break through to the late stage of heavenly monarch, his expression suddenly changed slightly. This was because his keen perception had discovered that 2 figures were speeding towards him. No, to be precise, it should be 3 figures. Behind the 2 figures at the front, there was a young man, red fiend sword. Ning Yu suddenly flew out of the bronze cauldron and shouted. Swish! The red fiend understood and immediately drilled into the red fiend's sword, controlling the red fiend sword to fly in front of Ning Yu. Pa! Ning Yu's eyes and hands were sharp, and he firmly grabbed the red fiend's sword. All of you, get in! With a low shout, Ning Yu inserted the red fiend's sword into the bronze cauldron. Splash! With the emergence of the red fiend's sword suction, the heavenly tribulation liquid in the bronze cauldron was entering the red fiend's sword at a terrifying speed. Very soon, all the heavenly tribulation liquid in the bronze cauldron entered the red fiend's sword. Crack! The heavenly tribulation liquid disappeared, and the bronze cauldron seemed to feel that its mission was completed. It instantly drilled into the void and disappeared. At this moment, Iron Muyu and Dushida rushed over, and each of them threw a punch at Ning Yu's head. This punch, Iron Muyu and Dushida seemed to have formed a tacit understanding, and did not use their full strength. After all, the mother spring was with Ning Yu. If they used their full strength and caused the mother spring to fall, they probably would not even have tears to cry. However, their actions gave Ning Yu many opportunities. The immortal chi in his body was injected into his fists, and Ning Yu threw out 2 punches. His left fist hit Dushida, and his right fist hit Iron Muyu. Leave the mother spring to me first. Seeing Ning Yu's savage actions, Lin Lang, who was chasing from behind, shouted. Lin Lang was so angry that his face turned green. Why was Ning Yu pretending to be a big shot? He had clearly just advanced to the heavenly monarch realm. Even if he jumped 2 levels and reached the middle stage heavenly monarch realm, his opponent was a half-step immortal king realm expert. Lin Lang was very confident in his own strength, but as strong as he was, if he did not use his trump card, it would be very difficult to fight against a half-step immortal king realm expert. Moreover, Iron Muyu and Dushida were not ordinary half-step immortal kings. The strength of each of them had reached the limit of the limit, unless they encountered a real immortal king. Otherwise, they could do whatever they wanted. Bang! Bang! While Lin Lang was worried about Ning Yu was fighting with Iron Muyu and Dushida. 2 crisp sounds rang out consecutively. Soon after, 2 figures were sent flying backwards. What? Chapter 2355. Gulp. Lin Lang did not say much, only swallowing a mouthful of saliva. In the current situation, Lin Lang knew that he was still the original him, but Ningyu is no longer the original Ningyu. After advancing to the middle stage of Heavenly Monarch, Ningyu's strength seemed to have a qualitative leap. Although Tai Muyu and Dushita were careless, Ningyu's strength was already an indisputable fact. After being repelled by Ningyu, Tai Muyu and Dushita both stood up from the ground and let out angry roars. In order to prevent the Mother Spring from being destroyed, they did not use their absolute trump card. But now, instead they were repelled by Ningyu and were at an absolute disadvantage. Ningyu did not care how Tai Muyu and Dushita roared. He knew very well that the most urgent thing was to rush up as soon as possible and defeat them with a thunderous method before they could react. Otherwise, if two peak half-step immortal kings attacked together, even he would feel very strained. Swoosh! However, after flying a few steps, Ningyu suddenly stopped. What a pity! Sighing to himself, Ningyu immediately turned around and rushed towards Rong Hao and the others. Tai Muyu and Dushita were indeed half-step immortal kings. If an ordinary martial artist was hit by him, they would probably be stunned for a while. But Tai Muyu and the others only needed a second to completely recover. You guys go in first. Arriving in front of Rong Hao and the others, Ningyu did not beat around the bush and said directly, "Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh." Rong Hao, Ning Lu, the Dark Emperor, the double-horned demonic beast. They knew the severity of the matter. With their strength, they would not be of any help even if they stayed. Entering the Red Fiend Sword was the greatest help to Ningyu, so they did not say anything and directly entered the Red Fiend Sword. "Ningyu, where is my Mother Spring?" Lin Lang did not care so much. In order to obtain the Mother Spring, he did not hesitate to use thousands of talismans. If he could not obtain the Mother Spring, then his departure from the Immortal Court was destined to be a huge loss. "I used it all." Ningyu had just opened his mouth to speak when he saw Lin Lang's furious expression. Seeing this, Ningyu hurriedly said, "Don't worry. You want the Mother's Spring to break through. I've already found a replacement for you." During the conversation, Ningyu flicked his wrist and threw a jade bottle to Lin Lang. "This is lightning tribulation fluid?" Catching the jade bottle that Ningyu had tossed over, Lin Lang was shocked when he felt the terrifying energy emanating from the liquid inside. When did the thunder tribulation liquid produced by the Heaven Monarch tribulation become so terrifying? You should know. Back when he was undergoing the Heaven Monarch tribulation, the thunder tribulation fluid that was produced was terrifying, but compared to Ningyu's, it was like heaven and earth. If I remember correctly, you produced a lot of thunder tribulation fluid when you were going through the Heaven Monarch tribulation, right? Lin Lang accepted the lightning tribulation liquid and continued, "Give me another 3 to 5 bottles, and the matter between us will be settled." Lin Lang was not a hothead. Ningyu said that the thunder tribulation liquid was more precious than the Mother's Spring. Although it was a bit exaggerated, the effect was not much different. Moreover, the thunder tribulation liquid that Ningyu had given him was far more than half of the Mother's Spring, because the jade bottle that Ningyu had given him was a spatial magic treasure. There was a lot of thunder tribulation liquid inside. However, who would complain about having more thunder tribulation liquid? If he could get more thunder tribulation liquid, his chances of breaking through to the half-step immortal king, or even becoming a true immortal king in the future, would be higher. 3 to 5 bottles, you really dare to think? Ningyu rolled his eyes. Without Lin Lang's permission, he had used up all the Mother's Spring. It was indeed a bit unkind. However, he had given Lin Lang a lot of thunder tribulation liquid as well. A quarter. Other than a quarter of what he had consumed and half of what he had stored in the red demon sword. The remaining quarter was all given to Lin Lang. If he was not satisfied with this, Ningyu really wanted to slap Lin Lang to death. If you want the Thunder Tribulation liquid, it's not impossible. You and I will join hands and kill Iron Muyu and Dushida. Ningyu's eyes turned and he said, "They are both peak half-step immortal kings. There must be a lot of good things on them. Kill them." Don't. I don't want the Thunder Tribulation liquid, okay? Lin Lang waved his hand, interrupting Ningyu, and said, "The mountains will not change. The rivers will flow forever. We will meet in the immortal court." Whoosh! Finished. Lin Lang did not care whether Ningyu agreed or not, and immediately tore the void, wanting to drill inside. Boom! However, before Lin Lang could drill into the void, Iron Muyu and Dushida's attacks suddenly arrived. Helpless, Lin Lang could only take out thousands of talismans from his bosom and threw them out. "My Thunder Tribulation liquid." Seeing Lin Lang take out thousands of talismans, not only Iron Muyu, who was rushing towards him, cried out in surprise. Even Ningyu was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. Although Ningyu was transcending the tribulation, just now his eyes were not blind. He saw Lin Lang taking out so many talismans to stop Iron Muyu and Dushida all at once. At that time, Ningyu thought that Lin Lang had taken out all his trump cards, so he gave him a little more Thunder Tribulation liquid. Now it seemed Lin Lang still had a lot of trump cards. Maybe he had tens of thousands of talismans on him. Who is he? Ningyu frowned, and for the first time he was interested in Lin Lang's identity. However, this was only temporary. Very soon, Ningyu's attention was attracted by Dushida. It seemed that the defeat just now made Dushida very angry, and his first move was a killing move, and each move was fatal. Fortunately, Ningyu advanced to the middle stage Heaven Monarch. Otherwise, he probably could not even withstand one move from Dushida. "Hand over the Mother Spring, and I will spare your life." After a few moves, Dushida took a few steps back, looked at Ningyu coldly, and said in a deep voice, "Otherwise I will let you know what cruelty is." "Sorry, the Mother Spring that belongs to me has been swallowed by me." Ningyu shrugged and said indifferently, "I am afraid you will not get any benefits from me." And, hearing Ningyu's words, Dushida could not help but look at the other battlefield. He had discussed with Iron Muyu. He would deal with Ningyu, and Iron Muyu would deal with Lin Lang. The Mother Spring would belong to whoever snatched it. Originally, he thought that Ningyu and Lin Lang would each get half of the Mother Spring. Unexpectedly, Ningyu did not have any Mother Spring on him at all. This kind of situation was something that he could never have expected. "Do you think I will believe you?" Dushida's face was cold, and he scolded, "I will give you one last chance. Hand over the Mother Spring." "You talk a lot of nonsense," Ningyu said impatiently. Then he stomped his feet on the ground and dashed out. Anyway, no matter what, he and Dushida would have a fierce battle. Rather than talking nonsense with Dushida here, he might as well take the initiative to attack. After all, a peak half-step immortal king like Dushida was still very powerful. Courting death. Seeing that Ningyu did not run away, but instead rushed towards him, Dushida could not help but curse. Chapter 2356. Crack, crack, crack. Dushida's punch was so powerful that even the void let out a cracking sound. Even a clay figurine would get angry, let alone a peak half-step immortal king expert like him. Bang! In a flash, Ningyu's fist collided with Dushida's fist. The two collided. The one-sided scene did not appear. Ningyu and Dushida each took a few steps back and floated in the air. Damn it! Dushida looked at Ningyu coldly and couldn't help but curse in his heart. When he fought with Ningyu just now, Dushida thought that he had completely figured out Ningyu's real combat strength. However, after this exchange, he became very absent-minded. Ningyu's strength seemed to have increased a lot. Gulp! While Dushita was slightly stunned, Ningyu quietly controlled the thunder tribulation, fluid to flow out of the red demon sword and into his body through his skin. After the Lord of Heaven's tribulation, Ningyu originally wanted to break through to the late-stage Lord of Heaven, but Dushita and the others arrived. Helpless, Ningyu could only choose to settle for the next best thing. He put away the thunder tribulation fluid and temporarily gave up cultivating. However, Ningyu did not dare to be careless when fighting with Dushita, a peak half-step immortal king. Cultivating while fighting was the goal that Ningyu set for himself. Even if he could not break through to the late-stage Lord of Heaven, there would be a qualitative leap in his strength. This was not. At first, Ningyu could only resist Dushita's attack, but as the battle went on, he could already be evenly matched with Dushita. According to this trend, Ningyu knew that he did not even need to advance to the late-stage Lord of Heaven to defeat or even kill Dushita. Of course, Dushita seemed to have noticed this as well. Therefore, Dushita turned his eyes and shouted at Taifeng and Du Shibing in the distance. "You two come over to deal with Ningyu. I'll go help Tai Muyu." Dushita was the kind of person who didn't bother about trifles. For the sake of benefits, he could stab his friends. Although Taifeng and Du Shibing were only half-step immortal kings, their strength was not weak. Fighting with Ningyu, he wouldn't be defeated so quickly. As long as Ningyu was delayed, then he could join forces with the Ironwood Fish and defeat Linlang. After defeating Linlang, they would come over to besiege Ningyu. Why would they need to worry about the Great Master? Yes. Taifeng and Du Shibing looked at each other before nodding their heads and rushing towards Ningyu. Actually, the two of them did not want to fight with Ningyu. Especially after witnessing how powerful Ningyu was, they only had one thought in their minds, and that was to leave as soon as possible, as far as they could. However, they had no choice but to obey Dushita's request. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The next moment, 3 figures shuttled back and forth in midair. Taifeng and Du Shibing rushed towards Ningyu, while Dushita rushed towards Linlang. Gulp. How could Ningyu not know Dushita's intention? It was just that he would not expose it. Such a good opportunity to swallow the lightning tribulation, fluid to cultivate. No schemes or plots could compare to the steadiness of increasing strength. Just as Ningyu was swallowing the lightning tribulation, fluid to cultivate, Taifeng and Du Shibing had already arrived in front of him. Without any hesitation, the two of them immediately raised their right hands and fiercely smashed towards Ningyu's head. Whether it was Taifeng or Du Shibing, they did not hold back at all. The fact that Ningyu could fight with Dushita without falling into a disadvantageous position was enough to prove his valiant strength. At this time, if Taifeng and Du Shibing dared to hold back, everyone would probably admire their courage. Crack! Crack! However, for some people, the ignorant were truly fearless. How much did Ningyu's strength increase? In a short period of time, his strength had doubled again. As for the lightning tribulation fluid on him, he was only left with a quarter. After swallowing so much lightning tribulation fluid, Ningyu was only a step away from the late-stage Heaven Monarch. But Ningyu would not break through to the late-stage Heaven Monarch now. He knew the priorities of the matter. Killing Taifeng and Du Shibing was the most important thing. Everything else could be put aside for the time being. Clenching both his fists, Ningyu's left fist punched towards Taifeng and his right fist punched towards Du Shibing. Accompanied by 2 crisp sounds, Ningyu stood on the spot, while Du Shibing and Taifeng's bodies were like kites with broken strings, flying backwards in a straight line. Uft, uft. Their bodies hit the ground. Taifeng and Du Shibing each spat out a big mouthful of blood. The pseudo-half-step immortal king's aura instantly dropped from the peak to the bottom. At this time, even a sane immortal or virtual immortal martial artist could easily kill Taifeng and Du Shibing. Die. Hit the snake where it hurts. Don't hold back. Ning, you would not give Tai Fong and Du Shibing a chance to live. His figure flashed, he lifted both his feet and stepped on Tai Fong and Du Shibing's heads. Boom! Next, a terrifying devouring power burst out from Ning Yu's ankle. Chi chi chi. Tai Fong and Du Shibing only lasted for a few seconds before they were devoured by Ning Yu. Hiss! The miserable state of Tai Fong and Du Shibing fell into the eyes of Du Shida and Tai Muyu. Although they were working together to fight against Lin Lang, Tai Fong and Du Shibing were very close to them. One was a nephew and the other was a son. Du Shida and Tai Muyu had no reason not to care about this. Phew! Du Shida and Tai Muyu were slightly distracted, allowing Lin Lang to heave a sigh of relief. He hurriedly flew towards Ning Yu. To be honest, fighting one against two, Lin Lang felt immense pressure. Fortunately, Ning Yu did something big and quickly killed Tai Fong and Du Shibing. Otherwise, his little life would have been killed by Du Shida and Tai Muyu. Good job! Lin Lang came to Ning Yu's side, reached out and hammered Ning Yu's shoulder and said, I didn't expect you to hide your strength so well. If I had known earlier, I would have let you deal with Du Shida and Tai Muyu. I will kill Tai Fong and Du Shibing. Ning Yu rolled his eyes at Lin Lang and said, Are you sure you can kill Du Shibing and Tai Fong in such a short period of time? Lin Lang opened his mouth slightly. His expression was slightly awkward. He admitted that he was strong and killing Tai Fong and Du Shibing was not a problem, but it would take a long time. You're finished. No one in the world can save you. Lin Lang was just about to reply to Ning Yu when he heard a loud shout. Boom! Boom! Then, Tai Muyu and Du Shida's aura suddenly burst out. How strong was the aura of a peak half-step immortal king? Crack! 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 Their auras had already reached the limit that this continent could withstand. As soon as the aura burst out, the void trembled, and the sound of the void breaking was endless. Go! Ning, you would not foolishly stay here and fight with Tai Muyu and the others. He grabbed Lin Lang's shoulder and directly sped away explosively into the distance. Chapter 23:57. Swish! Swish! Du Shida and Tai Muyu were extremely fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, they flew in front of Ning Yu, blocking his way. Whether it was to avenge Tai Fong and the others, or to get the mother spring of the Ironwood Divine Spring. In short, Du Shida and Tai Muyu would never allow Ning Yu to escape. Hand over the mother spring, and I will leave your corpse intact. Du Shida looked at Ning Yu coldly and said in a deep voice, Otherwise I will refine you into a puppet, and you will never crash. However, before Du Shida finished his words, his face changed dramatically because he discovered the void in the distance suddenly split open, and several figures emerged from the void and appeared in front of him. Damn it! Seeing the sudden appearance of many martial artists, Du Shida had no time to scold Ning Yu, and hurriedly adjusted his mental state to the best. Tai Muyu, who was next to him, also looked solemn. Ha ha ha! Among the several martial artists that emerged from the void, the leader was an old man dressed in white robes. The eyes of the old man in white first stopped on Ning Yu and Lin Lang for a while, and then immediately fell on Du Shida and Tai Muyu. Looking up and laughing wildly, the old man in white said, It seems that this trip was not in vain. 2 half-step immortal kings. As long as I can devour and refine you, I think I can go to the immortal court. Heavenly demon? The old man in white did not pay too much attention to Ning Yu, but Ning Yu had a deep feeling about him. From the old man in white, Ning Yu felt a familiar aura. Although the old man in white had concealed it well enough, Ning Yu knew very well that this aura was the unique aura of the heavenly demon. Yes, it's the heavenly demon. Lin Lang's face was extremely solemn. The old man in white was the leader of this group of heavenly demons, and his cultivation was at the peak of the half-step heavenly king realm. As for the dozens of heavenly demons behind the old man in white, their cultivation ranged from the early stage of heavenly lord to the pseudo-half-step immortal king. Those heavenly lord realm heavenly demons were completely ignored by Lin Lang. What Lin Lang truly feared were the 4 sky fiends behind the white-clothed old man. The cultivation bases of the 4 of them were all half-step celestial kings. In a sense, they were much stronger than Taifeng and Du Shibing. In other words, Ning Yu could easily kill Taifeng and Du Shibing, but he might not be able to easily kill the 4 of them. If a battle really breaks out later, it's best if we take advantage of the chaos to escape. Thinking of this, Lin Lang hurriedly transmitted his voice to Ningyu. Let Taimuyu and Du Shida deal with them. We'll go as far as we can. Don't think too much. Ningyu took a deep breath and said calmly, that white-robed old man's target is obviously Taimuyu and Du Shida. However, if my guess is correct, all the people behind the white-robed old man will be watching us to prevent us from escaping. Whoosh! As if to verify Ning Yu's words. As soon as Ning Yu finished speaking, all the sky demons turned to look at him. Jinx! Lin Lang couldn't help but curse. He thought that he could leave easily, but now he had to experience a great battle. However, compared to fighting Taimuyu and the others, Lin Lang preferred to fight against the sky demons. After all, the cultivation bases of these sky demons had not reached half-step Celestial King. As long as their cultivation bases were not half-step Celestial King, he had a way to deal with them. Taimuyu Du Shida. Next to him, the white-robed old man crossed his arms in front of his chest, staring at Taimuyu and Du Shida with interest, and said, "You 2 experts of the Immortal Court actually left the Immortal Court without permission. Do you really think that the Immortal Demon contract is just a decoration?" Hua! Hearing the white-robed old man mention the Immortal Demon contract, Du Shida and Taimuyu's faces became very ugly. What is the Immortal Demon contract? Ningyu asked in a low voice. The so-called Immortal Demon contract is a kind of contract signed between the Immortal Court and the Sky Demons. Lin Lang explained patiently. In ancient times, the experts of this continent fought with the Sky Demons and were eventually defeated, and were forced to retreat to the Immortal Court. At first, the Immortal Court showed weakness, and would give some cultivation resources to the Sky Demons every once in a while, and even ceded the continent to the Sky Demons. Because the experts of the Sky Demons were also seriously injured, the Sky Demons went into hibernation, and temporarily did not attack the continent. Now that the Sky Demons are active again, it means that the old ancestor-level experts of the Sky Demons have awakened. After listening to Lin Lang's explanation, Ningyu fell into deep thought. These things, if not for Lin Lang's explanation, he would probably only know after going to the Immortal Court. So it was not that the Sky Demons attacked the continent without permission, but this continent was ceded by all the experts in ancient times. Humph. The Immortal Demon contract is a deformed product. In another year, the Immortal Demon Convention will be held, and at that time, the Immortal Demon contract will be signed again. Du Shida snorted coldly. Obviously, he did not agree with what the white-robed old man said. Hee, I don't care what you say. In short, I will give you a chance to live, surrender, or die. The white-robed old man smiled slightly and said indifferently, "Boom!" As he spoke, a terrifying aura suddenly emitted from the white-robed old man. Crack, crack, crack. Being oppressed by the white-robed old man's aura, Du Shida and Taimuyu's pupils shrank, and their faces were full of shock. Their strength had reached the limit that the continent could withstand. But why did the aura that the white-robed old man emitted at this moment far exceed the limit that the continent could withstand? Swoosh! As if sensing Du Shida and Taimuyu's doubts, the white-robed old man waved his sleeves and directly took out a stone. Two-world stone! Seeing the stone in the white-robed old man's hand, Dushita, and Taimuyu's expression changed greatly. They were all super experts of the immortal court and naturally knew what the two-world stone was. As long as one carried the two-world stone, then they could ignore the pressure of the continent's heavenly Tao and forcefully execute moves that exceeded the limit. How could they fight? Once they executed moves that exceeded the limit, they would be forcefully suppressed by the heavenly Tao. On the other hand, the white-robed old man would not. No matter how many people they had, it was impossible for them to be a match for the white-robed old man. What should we do? Taimuyu and Dushita's eyeballs moved, and they were discussing countermeasures. The current situation was already very clear. Surrender, and there was still a possibility of survival. If they continued to fight, the possibility of survival was only 10% or even less. Where there's life, there's hope. Dushita gritted his teeth and then immediately took a step forward and knelt in front of the white-robed old man and said in a deep voice, "I am willing to surrender to you, but I hope that you can swear a heavenly Tao oath and not control my personal freedom." "I also choose to surrender." Dushita's surrender touched Taimuyu. He also knelt on the ground and said in a deep voice, "My condition is the same as Dushita's. I do not want my personal freedom to be affected. I will surrender." Chapter 2358. Taimuyu and Dushita were both peak half-step immortal kings. Originally, Ningyu thought that if the two of them joined forces, even if they were not a match for the white-clothed old man, they could still withstand the impact for a long time. But now, Ningyu admitted that he was wrong, and he was ridiculously wrong. Whether it was Taimuyu or Dushita, neither of them had the intention to make a move. They directly surrendered and chose to submit to the white-clothed old man. This situation was completely beyond Ningyu's expectations. It was something that he could never have imagined. What should we do? Seeing that Taimuyu and Dushita had submitted to the white-clothed old man, Lin Lang moved a little closer to Ningyu and whispered, "Why don't we follow?" Lin Lang did not continue to say anything else. However, the meaning was self-evident. Submit to the white-clothed old man. Although Lin Lang did not want to do so, at the same time he was very clear. Just one white-clothed old man was enough to make them feel very troublesome, not to mention Dushita and Taimuyu. Therefore, choosing to submit might be the only way to save their lives at this stage. Very good. A wise man submits to circumstances. The white-clothed old man nodded and said to Dushita and Taimuyu, "You are not weak. From now on, you will be my left and right arms and fight for me." Swish, swish. While speaking, the white-clothed old man rushed out, his hands repeatedly tapping on the heads of Taimuyu and Dushita. Puchi, puchi. Being tapped on the head, Taimuyu and Dushita both spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, their faces becoming extremely ugly. "You don't keep your word." Taimuyu stared coldly at the white-clothed old man and said fiercely, "You promised not to control us, not to restrict our personal freedom. What are you doing now?" "Fight it out with him." Dushita was also very angry. They submitted to the white-clothed old man, not to be controlled, but to survive, to stay alive. However, the white-clothed old man had taken advantage of their unpreparedness to forcefully inject a wave of energy into their heads. As long as the white-clothed old man was willing, he could detonate the energy at any time and turn them into ashes. Hee, what a fool! The white-clothed old man smiled faintly and said, "Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You're pretending to be a snake before looking for an opportunity to escape. To tell you the truth, the energy I've injected into your heads is extremely terrifying. If you move your head, you'll be blown to bits." Taimuyu and Dushita's faces were cold and gloomy, and they looked extremely angry. However, although they were angry, they knew very well that since things had come to this, no matter how vexed and angry they were, it would be of no use. Instead of getting angry, it was better to think about what to do next. Should he fight the white-robed old man to the death, or should he just go along with the flow and submit? Go catch those two brats over there. The old man in white didn't care about the ironwood fish's anger. He turned around and pointed at Ningyu. I'll give you 3 minutes. If you can catch them, I'll reward you with a few magic crystals. If you can't, you'll be punished. Mana crystals? Hearing the white-robed old man's words, Tai Muyu revealed a look of wild joy. Demonic crystals were a type of crystal that was equivalent to origin crystals. But among the sky fiends, demonic crystals were not simple. Generally speaking, only sky fiends whose cultivation had reached the peak of the half-step Celestial King Realm and were about to break through to the real Celestial King Realm were qualified to use them to cultivate. Now that the white-robed old man said that he would reward him with a few demonic crystals, and the price was an extremely low one for capturing Ningyu, how could he not be excited? Although Ningyu and Lin Lang were strong, Tai Muyu didn't pay too much attention to them. Firstly, his cultivation was strong, and secondly, with the white-robed old man around, presumably Ningyu and Lin Lang wouldn't dare to really kill him. Swish! Tai Muyu didn't think too much about it. He immediately moved and rushed toward Ningyu at an extremely shocking speed. You're still not going to surrender. As he moved forward, Tai Muyu raised his head and shouted. Tai Muyu's thinking was very simple. First, he would use words to threaten Ningyu. Then he would use force to capture Ningyu. After all, no matter what, Ningyu was someone who had exchanged many blows with Dushida. Simply going head-on against Ningyu, it was not wise. All right, I choose to surrender. Seeing that Tai Muyu was in front of him, Ningyu hurriedly threw the red demon's sword on the ground and said, The fact that Ningyu had thrown away the flying sword so easily made Tai Muyu a little puzzled. There must be a reason for this abnormality. He admitted that Ningyu's actions were very sensible, but for some reason, he still felt that Ningyu was up to no good. Swish! As it turned out, Tai Muyu's feeling was very correct. Just as he was in a daze, the red demon sword suddenly flew out and attacked him. Damn it! Originally, Tai Muyu was very close to Ningyu, and the red demon's sword had been thrown by Ningyu, causing it to be very close to Tai Muyu. Under such circumstances, the red demon's sword suddenly flew out, and Tai Muyu naturally couldn't block it. Puchi! The red demon's sword drew a line across the ironwood fish's cheek before returning to Ningyu's side. Pa! Gripping the red demon's sword tightly, Ningyu did not choose to hold back. Instead, he gave chase. Ningyu channeled the divine qi in his body into the red devil's sword and instantly engaged in a fierce battle with the ironwood fish. Interesting. It seems like I underestimated him. The white-robed old man looked at Ningyu with interest and murmured, with his intermediate heavenly monarch realm cultivation base, he can actually fight with a peak stage half-step immortal king without falling into a disadvantageous position. Once he advances to the peak stage heavenly monarch realm, or even a pseudo half-step immortal king realm, he will probably be able to kill Ningyu in an instant. He instantly killed the iron wooden fish. Why didn't I go help? Dushida rolled his eyes and said hurriedly, the temptation of magical crystals was not only useful for the ironwood fish. Dushida also needed mana crystals. After all, whoever had demonic crystals would have a higher chance of becoming an immortal king. Forget it. Let's wait and see. The white-robed old man wanted to agree, but seeing that the ironwood fish was being suppressed everywhere, he waved his hand and said, I gave the ironwood fish a chance. If he can take down that kid, it is his blessing. I will give him 3 magical crystals. If he can't take it down, he can't blame me. I can go and capture the other one. Dushida gritted his teeth and said, Didn't you hear what I said? The white-robed old man put his hands behind his back and said lightly, In the future, I will not say the same thing a second time. If I hear anyone talking nonsense to me again, then he will end up very miserable. Yes. Dushida was shocked and said hurriedly. Dushida was very clear. Although the white-robed old man did not say it explicitly, it was obviously aimed at him. Magical crystals. Taking a deep breath, Dushita stared at the ironwood fish and Ningyu. To be honest, Dushita really did not want the ironwood fish to win. On the contrary, he hoped that Ningyu could win, or even kill the ironwood fish. There was only one benefit. If the ironwood fish got it, he couldn't get it. If he got it, the ironwood fish couldn't. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.